Chapter 30:19. Jiyu Fei was infuriated by the fact that the demons in the demonic cavern dared to kill Jiyu Fei while he was undergoing his tribulation. After Jiyu Fei successfully transcended his tribulation, he rode the dragon horn Shaolin and bid farewell to Old Tortoise before returning to Wanxiang City in the eastern region. At this time, Wanxiang City was decorated with lanterns and streamers. The streets and alleys were filled with a joyous atmosphere as if it was a festival. Most of the residents in Wanxiang City were ordinary people. However, in the soaring dragon ancestral star, the ruler of a city was the city lord. This was because the city lord could protect the residents. In the eyes of the people in the city lord was the local tyrant. Currently, everyone in Wanxiang City had received a large amount of gifts from the city lord's mansion. Such a good thing had never happened in Wanxiang City before. Someone asked around and found out that the city lord had returned with a joyous occasion. It was a celebration for the entire city. Apart from Wanxiang City, the other cities in Jiyu Fei's territory were also celebrating. Every city was filled with a festive atmosphere. Jiyu Fei's return had shaken the entire eastern region of the soaring dragon ancestral star. The major forces in the eastern region became even more restrained. Those who had been plotting against Jiyu Fei in the dark did not dare to make a move. In the past few days, Wanxiang City was bustling with people. After learning that Jiyu Fei had returned to Wanxiang City, various major forces had sent envoys to visit Jiyu Fei. The people from the primordial desolate Zhao family and the Yaotai ancient sacred ground had come. Even the Dongfang family had sent envoys, which surprised everyone. In fact, all the cultivators in the eastern region knew about the feud between Jiyu Fei and the Dongfang family. Many experts of the Dongfang family had died in the hands of Jiyu Fei. It could be said that the Dongfang family and Jiyu Fei had a great feud. However, the Dongfang family had sent an envoy to congratulate Jiyu Fei on successfully transcending his tribulation and becoming a quasi-supreme. It could be said that Jiyu Fei's attitude towards the Dongfang family was also unfathomable. Jiyu Fei did not make things difficult for the Dongfang family's envoy. Not only did all the major forces in the eastern region come, but forces from other regions also came to Wanxiang City to congratulate Jiyu Fei. Some people even saw Ghost Emperor Fengdu's figure in the city lord's mansion. Even Ghost Emperor Fengdu had come. The Jiang family's Jiang Renhuang did not come in person, but an elder of the desolate clan had brought a gift from the Renhuang came. This shocked the various forces. Although Jiang Renhuang did not come in person, his attitude towards Jiyu Fei was what all the forces cared about the most. The fact that Jiyu Fei had a friendship with the Jiang family Renhuang was no longer a secret. He seemed to have the attention of the Jiang family Renhuang. He had the support of the Jiang family Renhuang, so those who wanted to deal with Jiyu Fei would have a headache. It should be known that Jiang Renhuang was definitely the most powerful being in the world. He was a living ultimate emperor realm cultivator. Actually, Jiyu Fei knew very well that these people were here to congratulate him on his success on the surface, but in reality, they were here to find out the truth about him. Jiyu Fei did not pay much attention to these red tape. The Iron Blood Taoist would naturally take care of it. At this time, 3 powerful beings of the deity path appeared in Wanxiang City. They were the 3 spirits of the deity path and deity ground that Jiyu Fei had subdued in the desolate world. The 3 spirits of the deity land were natural-born beings of the immortal Tao. The appearance of such existences in Wanxiang City shocked everyone. When the emissaries of the major powers found out that these 3 beings were actually immortal servants that Jiyu Fei subdued, they found it even harder to believe that such powerful existences were actually willing to become immortal servants of Jiyu Fei. The news that Jiyu Fei had become a quasi-supreme gradually spread throughout the cultivation world of the soaring dragon ancestral star, then to the Buzhou ancestral star, the creep myrtle ancestral star, and other ancestral stars. This was the first quasi-supreme since the destruction of the primordial world. Jiyu Fei's success brought hope to many beings. Ever since the destruction of the primordial world, the great Tao of the world was no longer complete. No one could successfully overcome the tribulation and become a quasi-supreme. Over the years, many beings had been stuck at this stage. Now, these beings had a choice. They could go to the heavenly realm or go to other realms to undergo the tribulation. The discovery of the desolate world gave these ancient beings another choice. Compared to the heavenly realm, the success rate of undergoing the tribulation in the desolate world was naturally higher. After the excitement, the countless cultivators that had gathered in Wanxiang City began to leave. The city quieted down. One morning, Jiyu Fei left the city lord's residence of Wanxiang City. He left the fire Qilin, the dragon horn Qilin, and the 3 divine servants behind, and headed for the eastern demon lair alone. With Jiyu Fei's current cultivation, he would probably be the only Ren Huang in the entire world who could catch up with him if he used the 8 steps extreme speed. In next to no time, he'd appeared outside the devilish territory, and then he stopped high in the sky and gazed coldly at the space before him. It was a region shrouded in demonic qi. Demonic qi lingered in the air, and the sky was dark. Frightening demonic howls could be heard from time to time, and demonic figures could be vaguely seen in the demonic qi. Humph! Jiyu Fei sneered. He raised his right hand and slapped at the void in front of him. Rumble! The void trembled as an incomparably huge chaotic hand appeared in the world, slamming into the demonic realm. In an instant, the demonic aura dissipated, and over a dozen ferocious-looking demonic beings shattered in the void. Roar! Then, a demonic howl was heard from the depths of the demon lair. An extremely powerful demonic figure rushed out from the depths. Who goes there? The demonic figure shouted at Jiyu Fei. Jiyu Fei said nothing. He took a step and disappeared in the void. When he reappeared, he was already behind the demonic figure. He no longer paid attention to this ferocious devil and directly walked towards the devil/s den. His figure soon disappeared into the void. Boom! Right after Xiao Chen left, the demon cultivator's body exploded in an instant, turning into a bloody mist that dissipated into the air. Even his primordial spirit was not able to escape, having been destroyed in both body and spirit. At that moment, Jiyu Fei appeared in the sky above the demon lair. In the pitch-black demon lair, the demonic qi was vast and mighty. From time to time, powerful figures would appear in the demon lair. The East Region demon lair was caught off guard by Jiyu Fei's sudden arrival. This was not the first time he came here. But this time, he discovered that there was an unimaginable demonic qi coming from the depths of the demon lair. Looks like the ancient demons have already woken up from their slumber. It's just the right time to take care of these guys. The demons in the East Region demon lair actually dared to attack him while he was undergoing his heavenly tribulation. If he didn't teach them a lesson, they would think that he was a pushover. At that moment, powerful demonic figures rushed out from the depths of the demon lair. Every single one of them exuded an extremely powerful demonic qi. Kill! The demonic figures rushed out from the demon lair and pounced towards Jiyu Fei. Terrifying demonic might spread out, causing the entire demon lair to tremble. Jiyu Fei took a step forward and instantly passed through the charging demonic figures. He then walked towards the bottom of the demon lair without looking back, disappearing from the demon lair. Those demonic shadows were fixed in the void. In the next moment, those demonic shadows dissipated. Their bodies and souls were destroyed, as if they had never appeared in the first place. At this time, the experts in the demon lair were alarmed. They rushed out from the depths of the demon lair and attacked Jiyu Fei. However, these demons couldn't even withstand a single move from Jiyu Fei. They were all destroyed by Jiyu Fei. This caused panic among the demons in the demon lair. Jiyu Fei didn't care so much. He was like the incarnation of a terrifying Grim Reaper, harvesting the lives of the demons. Boom! At this time, a demonic hand stretched out from the side and collided with Jiyu Fei's huge hand, producing an extremely dull sound. A demonic figure was sent flying, and demonic blood dripped down from the sky. Overestimating yourself. As Jiyu Fei spoke, he took a step forward and instantly caught up with the demonic figure that was sent flying. Then, he stomped down with his foot. Boom! With a loud sound, the demonic figure was stomped down from the sky and smashed into the ground. The ground immediately rippled like waves. The demonic figure roared and rushed out from the ground. Swish! A sword light flashed. Like a bolt of lightning, the sword light instantly pierced through the body of the demonic figure. Very soon, the demonic figure's body melted like snow and disappeared into the void. Jiyu Fei, it's you. At this time, a demonic figure in the demon's den recognized Jiyu Fei. The words of this demonic figure caused the surrounding demons to turn pale with fright. His Jiyu Fei. This was the first time the demons saw Jiyu Fei's appearance. There's a path to heaven, yet you refuse to take it. There's no door to hell, yet you insist on barging into it. Today, I'll send you on your way. A cold voice rang in Jiyu Fei's heart. Then, a blurry figure approached at high speed. An aura that even Jiyu Fei felt moved spread out from the figure in the demonic aura. Haha, you want to kill me? Who the hell do you think you are? Jiyu Fei laughed out loud. He had already become a quasi-supreme being. There weren't many people in this world that could threaten him. Kill. The figure in the demonic aura roared and attacked. A demonic dragon immediately appeared in the void, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws at Jiyu Fei. Buzz. Jiyu Fei didn't dare to be careless. He waved his right hand and a dazzling sword light immediately rushed out from his hand, slashing towards the demonic dragon. This was the heaven-punishing sword light. It was extremely powerful. Especially after Jiyu Fei became a quasi-supreme being, the power of the heaven-punishing sword light was even more terrifying. Swish. Chapter 30-20. Jiyu Fei had always been domineering, whether it was when he first made his debut or now that he had become a quasi-supreme. He had directly killed his way into the Eastern Devil Lair alone. He was going to settle the score with the demons in the Eastern Devil Lair. The destruction of the Taishen sect had a lot to do with the Eastern Devil Lair. If the Eastern Devil Lair had not suddenly broken the seal and appeared, the Taishen sect would not have declined so quickly. When the seal was broken, the Devil Lair reappeared, and the 9 peaks of Taishen collapsed. Countless demons rushed out of the Devil Lair. Jiyu Fei did not participate in that battle, but it was extremely tragic. All the major forces in the Eastern Devil Lair suffered great losses, especially the Taishen sect, which bore the brunt. Almost all the elders in the sect died in battle, leaving only the Medicine Daoist. And now, even the Medicine Daoist and the others had disappeared. Even if Jiyu Fei wanted to rebuild the Taishen sect, it would be impossible, unless he found his missing fellow disciples. After so many years, he only heard news about Zhao Ziru and Li Lingfeng, but Zhao Ziru disappeared in the Heaven Realm, and Li Lingfeng also disappeared during the Southern Heaven Divine Lord's rebellion. It was unknown whether he was alive or dead. As for the other fellow disciples, it was as if they had simply disappeared from this world. Even if Jiyu Fei traveled through the human world and the Heaven Realm, he could not find any trace of them. Today, I will settle the score with you demons, new and old. Jiyu Fei made a strong move, and the heaven-punishing sword light swept across, directly killing the demon dragon hidden in the demonic chi. Although the demon dragon was only condensed from the demon's magical power, it was not a real demon dragon, but when it was killed by Jiyu Fei's sword light, it roared in pain, scales and blood splattered everywhere. It was extremely realistic. It was as if a real demonic dragon had been killed by Jiyu Fei with a single slash. At this time, the Devil Lair was already boiling. Countless demonic shadows rushed over from all directions, and several powerful waves of divine will swept out from the depths of the Devil Lair. Jiyu Fei, quasi-supreme. A demonic figure appeared in front of Jiyu Fei. The demon that attacked Jiyu Fei stood respectfully behind the demonic figure. Fiend Ancestor Black Lotus. When Jiyu Fei saw the demonic figure, his pupils couldn't help but contract. He recognized the devil, and saw that within the devil chi, a black-clothed devil cultivator was riding on a demon Cheline. Both the demon and the demon Cheline were surrounded by demonic flames. An unimaginably powerful demonic aura spread out from the demon's body. When Jiyu Fei charged into the demon domain, Jiyu Fei's clone had fought with the Black Lotus demonic ancestor. Back then, the Black Lotus demonic ancestor was extremely powerful, and Jiyu Fei's clone wasn't a match for him at all. If not for Ghost Emperor Fengju's sudden appearance, Jiyu Fei's clone and Jiyu Zhong would have been in danger. But now, when Jiyu Fei encountered the Black Lotus demonic ancestor again, He finally understood how powerful and terrifying this ferocious devil was. It was no wonder why this ferocious devil could fight against Ghost Emperor Fengju and not be killed. Now that that old ghost is no longer protecting you, let's see who else can save you. The Black Lotus demonic ancestor stared at Ji Yufei. His blood-colored pupils flickered with blood-colored light, and in the depths of his pupils, blood-colored demonic runes were interweaving. "H, do you think that you can kill me?" Ji Yufei's expression turned grave. This Black Lotus demonic ancestor was truly powerful, but he could tell that the Black Lotus demonic ancestor wasn't invincible. There seemed to be something wrong with the Black Lotus demonic ancestor. He no longer had the invincible cultivation and battle prowess to fight against an extreme Dao supremacy. "Haha, a puny quasi-supreme dares to be so arrogant before me? You're simply courting death." The Black Lotus demonic ancestor laughed out of anger, and his voice spread far. At this time, the demons that came from all directions stopped. With the Black Lotus demonic ancestor personally taking action, there was no longer a need for them to join in the fun. Those demons retreated and stared at Ji Yufei and the Black Lotus demonic ancestor. Ji Yufei, Myriad Phenomenon City's Ji Yufei, he actually dares to barge into my race's territory. Some demons recognized Ji Yufei. One must know that among the demons in the demon cave, many demons had died in the hands of Ji Yufei. If he dares to enter here, he can forget about leaving alive. Some demons gritted their teeth and said, "With the Black Lotus demonic ancestor taking action, it'll be hard for him to survive." All the demons weren't optimistic about Ji Yufei's chances. They were very clear about how powerful the Black Lotus demonic ancestor was. He was one of the strongest existences in the demon cave, and he had once shaken the 9 heavens and 10 earths. The Black Lotus demonic ancestor was one of the rulers of the Eastern region demon cave. "Let's fight. Today, either you kill me, or I kill you." Ji Yufei spoke. An extremely powerful battle intent erupted from his body as the aura of a quasi-supreme being spread out, intimidating the group of devils. "As you wish." The Black Lotus demonic ancestor didn't say anything more. After that, 2 blood-colored devil lights shot out from his eyes, transforming into 2 blood blades that slashed towards Ji Yufei. Swish. In Ji Yufei's eyes, Dao runes interweaved as primal light flickered. 2 primal sword shadows shot out from his eyes, clashing against the incoming blood blades. The primal sword light and the blood devil blade light instantly clashed, dissipating into the void at the same time. At the same time, 2 figures moved rapidly in the void, engaging in a fierce battle. Violent energy fluctuations spread out in all directions, causing the entire demon cave to tremble. From the depths of the demon cave, heart-palpitating devil roars could be heard. It was as though a group of devils were dancing chaotically as a terrifying devil aura gushed out. The Black Lotus demonic ancestor was merely one of the rulers of the Eastern region demon cave. There were still other rulers of the demons that had yet to come out. Although those rulers of the demons had yet to come out, their existence was a formless threat to Ji Yufei. Because he didn't know when those fellows in the depths of the demon cave would come out. Rumble. The void trembled as pitch-black spatial cracks appeared one after another in the sky. It was as though black lightning had appeared all of a sudden as a destructive aura spread out. This Ji Yufei actually, the experts of the demons that were watching from afar were indescribably shocked. This Ji Yufei was actually strong enough to contend against the Black Lotus demonic ancestor. This was truly unbelievable. "We can't let this fellow live." An older generation demons spoke. Ji Yufei's growth was definitely a great threat to the demons. Roar. The Black Lotus demonic ancestor's demon Chelin roared. This demonic beast had one of its horns broken by Ghost Emperor Fengju. But now, its broken horn had already grown back. The demon Chelin's horn was constantly emitting black demonic light that bombarded Ji Yufei. That was the profound yin devil lightning. If one was struck by it, one's body and soul would be instantly destroyed. Ordinary heavenly venerables wouldn't be able to escape, but Ji Yufei wasn't a heavenly venerable. He was a quasi-supreme. The chaotic light that surged out from his body blocked the incoming black lightning. Although the Black Lotus demonic ancestor's demon Chelin was powerful, It was no longer a threat to Ji Fei. Ji Fei's opponent was only the Black Lotus demonic ancestor. This was the supreme demonic ancestor that had once shaken the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Bang! Boom! Ji Fei's palms and fingers constantly clashed with the hands of the Black Lotus demonic ancestor. Muffled sounds rang out constantly as the chaotic energy and demonic energy clashed constantly. 2 silhouettes moved rapidly in the void. Wherever they passed, everything was destroyed. As the 2 silhouettes rushed past, the experts of the devil race who couldn't dodge in time were instantly turned into a mist of blood by the mighty energy fluctuations. Their bodies and souls were directly destroyed. The group of demons was incomparably shocked and panicked. They had no choice but to dodge far away. Boom! The chaotic light and demonic light suddenly exploded. Ji Fei and the Black Lotus demonic ancestor were both sent flying. The Black Lotus demonic ancestor's demon Chelene was coughing out blood. If it wasn't for the Black Lotus demonic ancestor protecting it, this demon Chelene would have already died. What demonic ancestor? Merely SOSO. Ji Fei stood in the void and looked at the Black Lotus demonic ancestor in disdain. His palms and fingers were aching. The Black Lotus demonic ancestor's demonic physique was also incomparably powerful. It wasn't any weaker than Ji Fei's chaotic martial physique. Is that so? The Black Lotus demonic ancestor coldly replied. A powerful demonic aura erupted from his body as a menacing demonic figure vaguely appeared on his body. The warm-up is over. Kill. Ji Fei didn't say anything else. He turned into a streak of chaotic light and charged towards the Black Lotus demonic ancestor. Supreme chaotic force erupted from his body. On Ji Fei's body, chaotic essence surged as his entire body seemed to be enveloped by chaotic flames. Wherever he passed by, the void would collapse, leaving behind a spatial crack. The Black Lotus demonic ancestor's body also erupted with a supreme ripple of demonic energy. A black lotus appeared from the center of his brows before flying out. Boom! Ji Fei slammed his fist against the Black Lotus. The fist force of a quasi-sovereign state burst forth, shaking the entire world. However, it couldn't move the Black Lotus at all. The Black Lotus was only the size of a fist, but it was heavier than 100,000 primordial god mountains. A wave of demonic energy erupted from the Black Lotus, and Ji Fei was immediately sent flying by this force. This was the Great Tao Demon Lotus, and possessed an unfathomable demonic might. Swish! The Demon Lotus caught up to Ji Fei instantly. It then blossomed out as a heaven-devouring power spread out from the Demon Lotus, enveloping Ji Fei and pulling him into the Demon Lotus. Sheeing. The Great Tao Demon Lotus quivered as its petals began to close up, sealing Ji Fei within. Ha ha! The Black Lotus demonic ancestor roared out in laughter. If his Demon Lotus could cleanse this human, his cultivation state might just be able to recover to its peak. The great demon ancestor has won. When the powerful beings of the demons caught sight of this, they could not help but feel shocked. They had not expected that this battle would end so quickly. Chapter 30:21. Ji Fei was incomparably domineering. He directly killed his way into the East Region Devil Cave, alarming one of the devil ancestors in the East Region Devil Cave, the Black Lotus Devil Ancestor. The Black Lotus Devil Ancestor was a devil that had once shaken the 9 heavens and 10 earths. He had survived that chaos, which was enough to show how extraordinary he was. At this time, the group of demons saw that the Black Lotus Devil Ancestor had sucked Ji Fei into the Great Tao Devil Lotus. The Black Lotus Devil Ancestor's Great Tao Devil Lotus was a killing weapon that could kill a quasi-supreme. Once the Devil Lotus closed, Ji Fei would be dead. This is the result of arrogance. An expert of the devil race said disdainfully. Ji Fei's previous performance had made all the experts of the devil race unhappy. Now that Ji Fei was about to suffer, they naturally rejoiced in his misfortune. Daring to challenge the Lord Devil Ancestor, he's simply courting death. An expert of the devil race asked. However, the Black Lotus Devil Ancestor's expression was solemn. Devilish flames curled around his body. Even the devil Chelene under him was roaring uneasily. What's going on? The demons were all ancient devils that had lived for countless years. To be able to live to this day, they were naturally very shrewd. They could naturally see that something was wrong. It seems like the ancient devils were no longer calm. Rumble, the great Tao devil lotus that was floating in front of the black lotus devil ancestor, emitted thunderous sounds. Devilish runes appeared and interweaved on the great Tao devil lotus. A terrifying aura of the devil Tao erupted from the great Tao devil lotus. That Jiyu Fei is actually still alive, an ancient devil exclaimed. How is this possible? The ancient devils were indescribably shocked. It was hard to imagine that Jiyu Fei was still alive after being sucked into the great Tao devil lotus. Was this even possible? However, the truth spoke louder than words. The great Tao devil lotus was constantly trembling. Jiyu Fei seemed like he was about to rush out. A powerful energy rippled from the great Tao devil lotus. Good heavens! Even the black lotus demon ancestor couldn't help but be moved. Demonic chi surged from his body, incinerating the void. His hands kept forming seals, sending demonic runes into the great Tao demon lotus. The demonic aura emanating from the great path demon lotus became even stronger. It was as if it was going to crush the entire world and shatter it. A world-destroying might spread throughout the Devil's Cave. That's right, this was the power to destroy the world. All the ancient devils' expressions changed. This Jiyu Fei could actually force the devil ancestor to go all out. When the Black Lotus demon ancestor was at his peak, he was definitely the strongest existence in the world, and he could even fight against extreme sovereigns. But now, even if there was a problem with his cultivation, and he couldn't fight against extreme sovereigns, his fighting power still couldn't be underestimated. I refuse to believe that I can't refine a puny human like you. The Black Lotus demon ancestor was furious. He had no choice but to go all out. A terrifying demonic aura spread out from his body, causing the entire Devil's Cave to tremble. At this time, the tyrannical aura from the Black Lotus demon ancestor directly spread out from the eastern region Devil's Cave. Not only could all the living beings in the Devil Domain feel this aura, even the living beings outside the Devil Domain could feel it. What happened in the Devil's Cave? Outside the Demon's Domain, when the spies of the major forces sensed the mighty demon Tao aura coming from the Demon's Den, they were inexplicably shocked. Very quickly, the spies of the major powers spread the news. Not long after, incomparably powerful existences arrived outside the Devil Domain. The movements of the Eastern Region Devil's Cave had always been under the surveillance of the major powers in the Eastern Region. One must know that the devils in the Eastern Region Devil's Cave were a deterrent to the entire Eastern Region. Only by constantly monitoring the movements in the Devil's Cave could they know what the devils wanted to do. At this time, the spies of the major powers outside the Devil Domain had no idea what was happening in the Devil's Cave. They were all bewildered. No one dared to act rashly. One must know that the devils in the Eastern Region Devil's Cave were not easy to deal with. Especially those ancient devils, they were incomparably powerful and could even kill sages. Just as the experts of the major powers were rushing to the Devil Domain, but they were all watching from the outside, in the depths of the Devil's Cave, the Black Lotus demon ancestor erupted with a powerful demonic aura. However, the great Tao demon lotus floating in front of the Black Lotus demon ancestor was shaking more and more violently. Even when the Black Lotus demon ancestor used his full strength, he was actually unable to suppress Jiyu Fei inside the great Tao demon lotus. How is this possible? The Black Lotus demon ancestor's expression suddenly changed, and he instantly disappeared into the void. At the instant when the Black Lotus demon ancestor disappeared into the void on the demon Shaolin, the great Tao demon lotus actually flashed with 9 resplendent demonic lights, and a violent aura erupted from the great Tao demon lotus. In the next moment, there was a boom. The great Tao demon lotus instantly exploded, and countless demonic patterns were annihilated in the void. A figure directly rushed out of the great Tao demon lotus. What? Seeing this scene, all the experts of the demons were scared silly. Countless fragments of the great Tao demon lotus shot in all directions, instantly piercing through the bodies of countless experts of the demons. Roar! An ancient devil roared unwillingly, and his entire body turned into dust, dissipating in the void. The power of the Great Tao Demon Lotus was absolutely terrifying. All the ancient devils whose bodies were pierced by the fragments of the Great Tao Demon Lotus were instantly turned into dust. Even those who were grazed by the fragments of the Great Tao Demon Lotus were turned into dust, their bodies and souls destroyed. Damn it! The Black Lotus demon ancestor's figure appeared in the distant sky. Endless demonic aura surged from his body, and all the fragments of the Great Tao Demon Lotus that shot towards him were blocked by him. A layer of demonic light that looked like waves appeared on his body, enveloping him and the demon Chelene beneath him. When the fragments of the Great Tao Demon Lotus hit the layer of demonic light, they only caused a few circles of ripples. At this moment, all the ancient devils who were watching the battle from afar were hit. A large number of ancient devils fell down, and then directly turned into dust, their bodies and souls destroyed. Seeing this scene, the Black Lotus demon ancestor was both shocked and furious. Those were all ancient devils, existences that had lived for countless years, and could even kill sages. But now, they died for nothing. One must know that these ancient devils were the strongest combat strength of the Devil's Den. Losing so many of them in one go, even the Black Lotus demon ancestor felt incomparably pained. "If I don't kill you, I swear not to become a devil." The Black Lotus demon ancestor roared at the sky. His blood-red hair fluttered in the wind and an extremely violent demonic might erupted from his body. A black lotus appeared on his forehead and a blood-red light shot out from his eyes, piercing through the void. Chapter 30:22. Although Jiyu Fei had been sucked into the Great Tao Demon Lotus by the Black Lotus demon ancestor, not only was he not refined by the Great Tao Demon Lotus, but he even shattered the Great Tao Demon Lotus and charged out. This was something that no one had expected. All the spectating ancient devils thought that Jiyu Fei was dead for sure, but Jiyu Fei shattered the Great Tao Demon Lotus and charged out. As a result, the spectating ancient devils were unlucky. The fragments of the Great Tao Demon Lotus shot out in all directions, piercing through the bodies of countless ancient devils. Large numbers of ancient devils fell to the ground, their bodies turning into dust. Their souls were completely destroyed. Seeing this scene, even Jiyu Fei was shocked. He didn't expect the fragments of the Great Tao Demon Lotus to be so powerful that they could kill ancient devils at the Sage Realm. At this time, an ancient cauldron floated above his head. Primordial chaos energy descended from the ancient cauldron and enveloped him. Mountain and River Cauldron, it's the Mountain and River Cauldron. The furious Black Lotus ancestor was both shocked and furious. No wonder he couldn't refine this fella even with the Great Tao Demon Lotus. So this fella had the Mountain and River Cauldron to protect him. Buzz. At this time, the Mountain and River Cauldron above Jiyu Fei's head vibrated. Then, a figure appeared from the Mountain and River Cauldron. It was a small old man. "I say, brat, when can you calm down and let this old man rest for a while?" This small old man was the god of the Mountain and River Cauldron. He was in a deep slumber, but he was woken up again. This made him very unhappy. "TCH, I'm about to be refined to death. If you don't come out, who's going to save me?" Jiyu Fei said disapprovingly. "Yes, not bad. You're already a quasi-supreme. You didn't disappoint me. This also proves that my judgment isn't bad. I didn't misjudge you." The small old man didn't even look at the Black Lotus ancestor as he spoke to Jiyu Fei. The god of the Mountain and River Cauldron. The Black Lotus demon ancestor was even more shocked when he saw the little old man appear on the Mountain and River Cauldron. Was the Mountain and River Cauldron a flawless extreme Tao artifact? How was that possible? One had to know that in that distant era, many Supreme Tao weapons had been destroyed, and even Supreme Supremes had fallen, let alone Supreme Tao weapons refined by Supreme Supremes. However, the Black Lotus demon ancestor was well aware of how terrifying a flawless extreme Tao artifact was. It was practically equivalent to an extreme Tao supremacy arriving in person. His Great Path Demon Lotus was actually a peerless demonic tool that could contend with an extreme Path Tao soldier. However, it had been damaged during a great battle in a distant era. Even now, it had not been fully repaired. If his Great Tao Demon Lotus was also a perfect demonic artifact, it wouldn't have been shattered so easily by Jiyu Fei's cauldron of Mountain and River. The Black Lotus demon ancestor's great Tao demon lotus was destroyed once again, shattering into countless pieces. This time, the demonic artifact was completely destroyed. A drop of devil blood seeped out from the Black Lotus demonic ancestor's forehead before sliding down his face and dripping onto the ground. Kill. Without any hesitation, the Black Lotus demonic ancestor roared in rage. He rode on the demon Chelin and charged towards Jiyu Fei. An extremely terrifying demonic aura erupted from his body. Rumble. The entire demonic cave was shaking as though it could collapse at any time. An even stronger wave of demonic energy came from the depths of the demonic cave. Terrifying demonic marks appeared in the void of the entire cave. These demonic marks froze the trembling demonic cave. Supreme grade demonic marks. Jiyu Fei was taken aback. This demonic cave seemed to be opened up by an extreme Tao demon ancestor. Otherwise, who would be able to use supreme grade demonic marks? Kill. At this moment, Jiyu Fei didn't have much time to think. He directly charged towards the Black Lotus demonic ancestor. Boom. Two figures collided instantly, and an incomparably shocking sound erupted. Jiyu Fei was directly sent flying by the Black Lotus demonic ancestor. Hand over your life. The Black Lotus demonic ancestor roared as he chased after Jiyu Fei. Roar. The demon Chelin under the Black Lotus demonic ancestor roared and spat out a demon pearl. This demon pearl instantly enlarged and turned into a black sun, smashing towards Jiyu Fei. The black sun formed by the Chelin demon pearl emitted a towering demonic flame that swept towards Jiyu Fei. Preposterous. Jiyu Fei was shocked at the strength of the Black Lotus demonic ancestor. As for the attack of the demon Chelin, he didn't even bother about it. No matter how strong the demon Chelin was, it was not a match for him. Swish. Jiyu Fei immediately unleashed a heaven-punishing sword light. With a flash of the sword light, the black sun smashing towards him was immediately split into two halves by the extremely sharp sword light and fell from the sky. The demon Chelin roared out as its expression turned weary. The destruction of the Chelin demon pearl had caused the demon Chelin to suffer a huge blow. At the same time, Jiyu Fei was sent flying by the Black Lotus demonic ancestor once again. Blood oozed out from his nose and mouth. Even his quasi-sovereign martial body had suffered a huge blow. Old man, you're just watching from the side. Why aren't you making a move? Jiyu Fei was extremely depressed. The deity of the mountain and river cauldron was simply too unreliable. I thought you could do it. The small old man on the mountain and river cauldron said. Get rid of this fella quickly. Jiyu Fei roared at the small old man. So you can't do it? Then I'll reluctantly help you get rid of this fella. The small old man shook his head and said. Jiyu Fei was nearly angered by this small old man to the point of vomiting blood. Bam! The Black Lotus demonic ancestor charged over once more. A violent power of the demon Tao burst forth, sending Jiyu Fei flying. At this moment, a figure descended from the sky and blocked in front of the Black Lotus demonic ancestor. An aura of the extreme Tao spread out from this figure. Kill. The Black Lotus demonic ancestor's eyes were bloodshot. He would dare to kill anyone who stood in his way right now. Anyone who dared to stand in his way deserved to die. However, the one standing in his way was no ordinary living being. It was the deity of the mountain and river cauldron. The small old man stretched out his right hand and grabbed the fist of the Black Lotus demonic ancestor. Get down. The small old man roared out and swung the Black Lotus demonic ancestor up before smashing him onto the ground. Boom. A loud explosion rang out as the ground trembled. That incomparably ferocious Black Lotus demonic ancestor was smashed onto the ground by the deity of the mountain and river cauldron. Cauldron suppresses the great demon. The deity of the mountain and river cauldron descended from the sky as a terrifying aura descended from the mountain and river cauldron. Roar. From the huge pit on the ground, the roars of the Black Lotus demonic ancestor and demon Chelin rang out. Boom. Chapter 3023. The god of the mountain and river cauldron made its move. The little old man directly disappeared into the mountain and river cauldron. Then, the mountain and river cauldron pressed down from the sky. Boom. The entire ground was collapsing. An extremely terrifying might of the extreme Tao erupted from the mountain and river cauldron. In the Devil's Den, countless demonic runes of the extreme Tao appeared and then collapsed. They were directly obliterated by the mighty power of the extreme Tao. The entire Devil's Den was in great turmoil and was about to collapse. The attack of the mountain and river cauldron was definitely a disaster to the entire Devil's Den. A terrifying disaster. Countless ferocious demons roared, letting out their final roars of unwillingness. The great destruction began. With the mountain and river cauldron as the center, it spread out in all directions. The entire Devil's Den was collapsing. It was as terrifying as the end of the world. Countless demons directly collapsed in the void, turning into blood mist. Their bodies and souls were destroyed. The Black Lotus demon ancestor and his mount, the demon Chelene, didn't even have the chance to scream before they died. They were directly killed by the mountain and river cauldron, their bodies and souls destroyed. One must know that this was the power of the extreme Tao. The Black Lotus demon ancestor was no longer the extreme Tao demon ancestor. Under the full power of the mountain and river cauldron, even if he was once the invincible demon ancestor, he wouldn't be able to withstand the might of this attack. The Black Lotus demon ancestor died just like that. Ji Yufei sighed when he saw this. The demon ancestor of a generation actually died just like that. Although he escaped that calamity and lived to this day, he still died under the mountain and river cauldron. The Devil's Den collapsed. No one expected such an outcome. Countless demons died. Just as the most mysterious place in the depths of the Devil's Den was about to be destroyed, a supreme power of the Devil Tao spread out from the most mysterious place. A ball of demonic light actually blocked the power of the mountain and river cauldron. A demonic figure appeared in the world, actually supporting a part of the world and contending against the power of the mountain and river cauldron. Buzz. The mountain and river cauldron shook. Primordial chaos chi surged and the body of the mountain and river cauldron actually turned into a little old man. That little old man was like a supreme being of the extreme Tao. The aura on his body was enough to crush everything. Ji Yufei, who was enveloped by the power of the cauldron of mountain and river, was not affected at all. He looked at the scene in shock. This was the might of the extreme Tao. To think that a single strike from the mountain and river cauldron could destroy everything in its path. This was way too scary. One had to know that this was a void that was sealed by the extreme Tao demon marks. In front of the mountain river cauldron, even the void sealed by the extreme path demonic pattern was like a thin piece of paper, easily torn apart. Rumble, as the two extreme powers clashed, the little old man waved his hand, and Ji Yufei flew to his side. I didn't expect there to be an extreme Tao demonic artifact in this demon den. Even I was mistaken. The little old man changed from his usual playful and angry demeanor, and his expression became incomparably grave. An incomplete extreme path devil tool would not make him pay so much attention. That extreme path devil tool was definitely a perfect extreme path devil tool. I say, old man, with you making a move, what can't you handle? Who cares what kind of demonic tool it is, just kill it. Ji Yufei said disapprovingly. Yes, haha, who do you think I am? I am the mountain and river cauldron, kill it with one move. The little old man laughed loudly. Don't go too far. The demonic figure opposite him suddenly sent out a wave of divine will. One had to know that the extreme path devil tool was actually a different kind of life, and the god in the devil tool was not to be trifled with. Is this too much? I don't think so. All right, I'll send you on your way. The little old man said and was about to make a move. However, the demonic figure opposite him suddenly shattered the void and rushed into the chaos with the 3 stone coffins surrounded by devil chi, disappearing in an instant. The next time we meet, we must fight to the death. A wave of divine will came out from the chaos void. The demonic figure had actually escaped. It seemed that the demonic figure had some scruples and was unwilling to fight with the mountain and river cauldron now. The little old man did not chase into the chaos. Hey, old man, are you kidding me? Did you get tricked by that guy just like that? Ji Yufei looked at the little old man unhappily and said, It's not the time yet. The little old man looked at the shattered void in front of him and suddenly sighed. "What did you say?" When Jiu Fei heard this, he immediately pricked up his ears. He thought that the little old man would reveal some ancient secrets, but he was immediately disappointed because the little old man did not say anything after that. "All right, this time we've wiped out the East Region Devil Den. It can be considered as your revenge," the little old man said. "TSK, didn't the culprit escape? This can also be considered revenge," Jiu Fei said disapprovingly. "Brat, be content. Those guys are not people you can deal with, unless you can break through the extreme realm and make the ultimate leap to become an extreme path supreme," the little old man said. Since ancient times, there have been countless cultivators, but in the 3 realms and 6 paths, there were very few living beings who could become extreme path supreme. Ever since the untainted land was shattered and the passage between the heaven realm and the mortal world was cut off, no living beings could make the ultimate leap. Becoming an extreme path supreme is too difficult, Jiu Fei said. As long as your fighting spirit is not extinguished and your heart to seek the Tao never stops, you can become the existence you want to become, the little old man suddenly said earnestly. Jiu Fei was the fastest person he had met to become a quasi-supreme. In his opinion, Jiu Fei definitely had a chance to become an extreme path supreme. If it's so easy, there would be many supremes in this world, Jiu Fei said. At this time, the entire Devil Den collapsed and endless dust buried everything. Of course, the dust couldn't bury Jiu Fei and the others. "Let's go." The little old man grabbed Jiu Fei and instantly disappeared into the void. In the next moment, they appeared in the void outside. At this time, the incomparably terrifying Xianyin Devil Qi was spreading in all directions. The experts of the major forces watching outside the Devil Den were shocked and hurriedly retreated. Some cultivators who couldn't escape in time were eroded by the Xianyin Devil Qi and lost their consciousness. Then, shocking changes happened to them and they turned into ferocious and terrifying monsters. These monsters only knew how to kill. The ferocious monsters that the demonized cultivators had turned into rushed out of the Devil Qi and pounced on the human race cultivators. Evil creatures, a middle-aged cultivator waved his right hand and an extremely sharp sword light immediately rushed out from his hand, instantly piercing through more than a dozen monsters that pounced on him. However, there were many human race cultivators who were demonized by the Xianyin Devil Qi. Some of the monsters rushed into the crowd and immediately, flesh and blood flew everywhere, blood splashed, and screams rang out incessantly. No one knew what happened. Even the saint-level living beings were running for their lives. Let's return peace to the East Domain. Chapter 3024. An ancient cauldron as large as a mountain appeared in the sky above the demon domain. Then, a terrifying heaven-devouring power surged out from the ancient cauldron. Rumble, the void shook, and the dense profound yin demonic qi in the surroundings immediately gathered towards the mouth of the ancient cauldron, and was devoured by the ancient cauldron. Then, the profound yin demonic qi in the surroundings was attracted and gathered towards the ancient cauldron. Next to the ancient cauldron stood a black-robed young man. He looked at the ancient cauldron with a complicated expression. The mountain and river cauldron could even refine and absorb demonic qi. The profound yin demonic qi in the eastern demon cave was too huge. This kind of demonic power was infinitely close to the sovereign level. If the mountain and river cauldron devoured this kind of power, it might be able to recover to its peak state. Jiu Fei knew that even the mountain and river cauldron had suffered a blow in that ancient era. Even now, it still hadn't fully recovered. Very quickly, the living beings outside the infernal domain discovered that the vast and mighty profound yin devil qi within the infernal domain had actually retreated like the tide, and even the demonic beings transformed from the human clan cultivators had fallen to the ground. The devil qi on their bodies was forcefully extracted by that force, and then they transformed into black powder, their bodies and souls destroyed. Some powerful saint-level creatures couldn't help but be shocked when they saw this. Could it be that the demons in the demon domain had rushed out? If that was the case, it was definitely not a good thing. The Eastern Demon Cave had always been the greatest threat to the creatures in the Eastern Demon Domain. No one knew when these demons would come out of the Demon Cave. Once the devils in the Devil's Den came out, it would be a disaster for all living beings in the Eastern Domain. However, no demons rushed out from the depths of the demon domain. The saint-level creatures could sense that the demonic aura in the entire demon domain was weakening. What's going on? Some saints frowned as they watched this scene. Not long after, the profound yin demonic chi in the entire demon domain was devoured by the mountain and river cauldron. The creatures outside could no longer sense any demonic aura. How is this possible? All the living beings were inexplicably shocked. They didn't know what had happened in the demon domain. The demonic aura of the Eastern region demon lair had actually disappeared. At this time, even the strongest existence in the Eastern region was alarmed. A figure appeared in the sky above the Eastern region devil cave. It was a woman with a bronze mask on her face. The Eastern Sky Tyrant Emperor had arrived. Shua. A beam of golden light descended from the sky and landed in the Eastern region devil lair. A tall figure with golden divine light all over his body appeared in the void. The supreme deity from the Zhao clan of the Desolate had arrived. It didn't take long for all of the hidden experts of the Eastern Domain to arrive. They were all old-timers who had lived for countless years. Many of them had participated in that ancient war and survived. None of the old-timers who had lived to this day were simple. Although these existences arrived very quickly, only the Eastern Sky Tyrant King and the peerless god from the primordial Zhao clan saw the ancient cauldron instantly disappear into the void. It's him. The Eastern Sky Tyrant King looked pensive, and the eyes behind the bronze mask flickered with a bright light. He destroyed the Devil Cave just after becoming a quasi-supreme. The golden deity muttered to himself. Then, he turned into a beam of golden light and soared into the sky, instantly disappearing into the void. After that, the Eastern Sky Tyrant King also left. At this time, the old antiques in the distance dared to come over. When they saw the huge pit on the ground, they were all shocked to the extreme. The Devil Cave no longer exists. Someone said with a trembling voice. One had to know that the Black Lotus Devil Ancestor was in charge of the Eastern Region Devil Cave. The major forces of the Eastern Region were very wary of the Black Lotus Devil Ancestor, and no one was willing to offend him. But now, the Eastern Region Devil Cave had been destroyed. Could it be that the Black Lotus Devil Ancestor had been killed? The possibility of the Black Lotus Devil Ancestor being killed was very high. After all, even the Eastern Region Devil Cave had been destroyed. If the Black Lotus Devil Ancestor hadn't died, who could destroy the Eastern Region Devil Cave? Only one big shot would know who did all of this. The news of the Eastern Region Devil Cave being destroyed spread very quickly. This was definitely explosive news. The Eastern Region was shaken, the entire soaring dragon ancestral star was shaken, and the entire human world of cultivation was shaken. This was even more shocking than when Jiu Fei and the old tortoise leveled the Heaven Realm's forbidden area. That was because that was a devil cave that was almost impossible to be leveled, and it was guarded by the Black Lotus Devil Ancestor. Very soon, the news spread that the person who leveled the Eastern Region Devil Cave was Jiu Fei. Of course, this was just a guess. That peerless deity from the Zhao clan and the Eastern Sky Tyrant King from the Dongfang clan didn't say anything. Naturally, no one else knew that it was Jiu Fei who did it. Master actually leveled the Eastern Region Devil Cave. In Wanxiang City, the Iron Blood Daoist muttered to himself on the city wall. He never thought that Jiu Fei would actually do such an earth-shattering thing as soon as he came back. Leveling the Eastern Region Devil Cave. This kind of achievement was definitely enough to shake the three realms and the six paths. The Iron Blood Daoist, who was standing on the city wall, looked in the direction of the City Lord's mansion. This master of his was really too unpredictable. He would often do something earth-shattering without saying a word. Whether it was leveling the Heaven Realm's forbidden area back then or leveling the Eastern Region Devil Cave this time, not everyone could do such a great thing. Of course, only core figures like the Iron Blood Daoist knew that it was Jiu Fei who leveled the Eastern Region Devil Cave. In fact, it should be said that it was the mountain and river cauldron that leveled the Eastern Region Devil Cave. When the Dragon Horn Chalene and the Fire Chalene heard that the Eastern Region Devil Cave was leveled by Jiu Fei, they were also dumbfounded. Master is too awesome. Zhu Galiang, the only survivor of the 13 great bandits, sighed. He walked out of the cultivation ground and came to the city wall. Iron Blood Boss. Zhu Galiang bowed to the Iron Blood Daoist. I've thought it through. I'm really going to the human race's ancient road. The Iron Blood Daoist glanced at Zhu Galiang and said, That's right. If I don't make this trip, I might be stuck at the quasi-sage realm for the rest of my life. If I want to take that step, I must make this trip. Zhu Galiang sighed and said, Go on then. The Iron Blood Daoist thought for a moment and nodded. He knew what Zhu Galiang wanted to do. He wanted to break through the bottleneck of his cultivation through life and death experiences. Thank you, Iron Blood Boss. Zhu Galiang bowed towards the Iron Blood Daoist once again, then directly rushed into the sky, flying towards the divine island in the sky. He wanted to take the human race's ancient road. I hope you can succeed. The Iron Blood Daoist looked at the direction where Zhu Galiang disappeared and suddenly sighed. It was either succeed or die. Zhu Galiang was throwing caution to the wind. He wanted to comprehend the Tao between life and death, then break through the shackles of cultivation and soar into the sky. Of course, if Zhu Galiang failed, then he would die and disappear from this world. At this moment, Jiyu Fei was in the cultivation room of the City Lord's mansion. He entered his inner world and went to the Meng clan. The old clan leader of the Meng clan led a group of higher-ups to welcome Jiyu Fei and brought him into the Meng city of the Meng clan. It could be said that the Meng clan had completely taken root in Jiyu Fei's inner world. The Meng city was not a small city. It was a medium-sized city that was built by the Meng clan bit by bit. You guys have done well. Jiyu Fei sat down in the main hall of the City Lord's mansion and couldn't help but nod to himself. The Meng clan was developing well and the entire clan was thriving. After the transformation of the Immortal Transformation Lake, the physique of the entire Meng clan had transformed into the Immortal Physique. Cultivators with the Immortal Physique would definitely be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort, and their cultivation speed would be much faster than ordinary cultivators. Moreover, to a certain extent, cultivators with the Immortal Physique were already considered immortals. It was definitely not an exaggeration to say that the Immortal Transformation Lake could allow ordinary cultivators to become immortals. Very well, cultivate well. Perhaps you guys will be of help in the future. Jiyu Fei nodded. He was very satisfied with the improvement of the Meng clan. This is all thanks to the help of the Lord. The old clan leader of the Meng clan said hurriedly. Hehe, old clan leader, you don't have to be so humble. This is mainly because the physiques of the Meng clan are pretty good. Otherwise, you guys wouldn't have achieved what you have today even with my help. Jiyu Fei said with a smile. Our clan will never forget the great kindness that the Lord has shown us. The old clan leader said. Cultivate well and try your best to improve your cultivation. You should know that even I might not be able to protect you guys when the great calamity comes. Jiyu Fei pondered for a moment and said such words. The great calamity. The old clan leader of the Meng clan and the higher-ups of the Meng clan were shocked. All right, I'm leaving. That's all. Jiyu Fei said and stood up. The old clan leader of the Meng clan stood up and led the higher-ups of the Meng clan to send Jiyu Fei off. Once he was out of Meng City, Jiyu Fei took a step and disappeared from the eyes of the higher-ups of the Meng clan. No one could see how he left. Great calamity? What does that mean? The old ancestor of the Meng clan muttered to himself as he looked at the direction where Jiyu Fei disappeared. Since Jiyu Fei didn't say, he didn't dare to ask either. However, this was a wake-up call for the Meng clan. Old ancestor, what do you think the Lord means? A black-clothed middle-aged man cautiously said to the old patriarch of the Meng family. The other higher-ups of the Meng clan looked at the old clan leader. How would I know? You ask me, but who am I supposed to ask? The old clan leader said snappily. He thought for a while and said, all of you, go back and cultivate hard. Try your best to improve your cultivation. Yes, old ancestor. The crowd quickly replied. Chapter 30-25. In the inner world, Jiyu Fei went to the Death Valley of the Undying clan after leaving the Meng city of the Meng clan. The Death Valley was naturally a place where there was only death. The entire valley was shrouded in a deathly aura. In this inner world that was full of vitality, such a valley seemed out of place. Although the vicinity of Death Valley was also full of vitality, there was no trace of a single living being. Within 10 miles of Death Valley, not a single living being could be found. None of the living beings would get close to death. Once they sensed the deathly aura coming from the valley, they would avoid it in fear. At this moment, the 3 undying emperors, who were rarely seen, came out. A powerful deathly aura spread out from the 3 figures, causing all the undying beings in the valley to panic. "Greetings, Master." The 3 undying emperors hurriedly came before Jiyu Fei and bowed to Jiyu Fei. "You guys have been doing well these years. Tell me your plans." Jiyu Fei glanced at the 3 undying emperors and said, "Master, you," the emperor of the underworld said hesitantly. They didn't know what Jiyu Fei meant, so they were very cautious. The Bone Emperor and the Corpse Emperor looked at Jiyu Fei in confusion. "Reverse life and death and become a saint." Jiyu Fei uttered these words. "What?" The 3 undying emperors were surprised and delighted. Wasn't the goal of the undying beings to reverse life and death and be reborn? "Master, you are saying," the 3 undying emperors said excitedly. "That's right. I can help you reverse life and death and become a saint." Jiyu Fei said, "Master, is this true?" The 3 undying emperors couldn't believe their ears. The thing that they had been desperately pursuing had actually delivered itself to their doorstep. This made them feel that it was unreal. "What do you guys think?" Jiyu Fei said impatiently. "Master's words will never be wrong. Thank you, Master, for helping us." Then, the Emperor of the Underworld knelt down. "Thank you, Master." Bone Emperor and Corpse Emperor knelt down as well. At this time, Bone Emperor had already refined the Bone Dragon and possessed an incomparably powerful bone body. However, this made him feel very conflicted. He had just obtained a powerful bone body. Could it be that he had to give it up? To reverse life and death and regenerate flesh and blood, the original body's bones were naturally the most suitable. "Let me help you." Jiyu Fei glanced at Bone Emperor and said. Then, he directly fused Bone Emperor's Yuan spirit with the dragon skeleton. In this way, Bone Emperor's Yuan spirit was completely fused with the dragon skeleton, and there was no distinction between them. "Alright, there won't be any future troubles," Jiyu Fei said. With his current cultivation base, fusing the primordial spirit of Bone Sovereign with the dragon skeleton was as easy as flipping his palm. "Thank you, Master." Bone King was extremely excited. One should know that this was an ancestral dragon skeleton. Such a bone body was definitely extremely powerful. Although Bone King had barely managed to refine the ancestral dragon skeleton, it was hard for him to fuse with it. This time, Jiyu Fei completely fused the primordial spirit of Bone Sovereign with the ancestral dragon skeleton, eliminating the hidden danger of Bone King. "Alright, go to the Immortal Transformation Lake. Each of you will get a peach of immortality and jump into the Immortal Transformation Lake. If you guys are still alive after that, you guys will be able to reverse life and death and regenerate your flesh and blood." Jiyu Fei said. Peach of Immortality, Immortal Transformation Lake. The 3 undying emperors looked at each other in doubt. One should know that it was the Immortal Transformation Lake that contained immortal chi. This immortal chi was the nemesis of death chi. You guys are undying beings. Trying to reverse life and death is equivalent to defying the heavens. It won't be that easy. As long as your Yuanshan isn't destroyed and your flesh and blood are regenerated, you might be able to break through the shackles of cultivation and become saint-level experts. Jiyu Fei explained. "If we fail, won't our bodies and souls be destroyed?" The Emperor of the Underworld said emotionally. He had thought of the consequences. To these living beings, the destruction of their bodies and souls was equivalent to death. "How about this, if one of you fails, I'll give him a chance to continue on the path of undying and become the strongest undying being," Jiyu Fei said after some thought. The 3 undying emperors were overjoyed. Their master was too kind to them. With his words, even if they failed, their bodies and souls wouldn't be destroyed. In fact, if an undying being walked on the path of undying, it wouldn't be any weaker than other living beings. "Go!" Ji Fei waved his hand and a mass of chaotic light enveloped the three undying emperors. Then, they disappeared into the void. At this moment, the other undying beings in the valley dared to come out from their hiding places. They looked around in fear. The immortal transformation lake was shrouded in celestial light. The immortal peach trees beside the lake were filled with immortal peach trees that emitted a fruity fragrance. The immortal peach trees emitted a brilliant spiritual light as if there were stars hanging on the trees. This was the quasi-immortal divine medicine. It contained chaotic energy internally and the power of yin and yang intertwined on the outside. A single fruit actually contained both the power of yin and yang. It was definitely a spiritual item that was created by the heavens and earth. Swoosh! At this moment, a mass of chaotic light wrapped around a few figures and appeared by the immortal transformation lake. The chaotic light dissipated and a few figures appeared. The three figures surrounded by the aura of death appeared by the immortal transformation lake and cried out in surprise. They realized that the dense immortal energy around them was actually destroying the aura of death on their bodies. At this moment, Ji Fei waved his hand, and the three immortality peaches immediately fell into his hand. These peach fruits can save your lives. Keep them well. Don't hesitate when you're in a life and death situation. Eat the peach fruits or refine the peach fruits to live. Ji Fei waved his hand again and the three peach fruits in his hand immediately flew to the three undying emperors. The three undying emperors quickly caught the peach fruits and were about to bow to Ji Fei. However, at this moment, Ji Fei disappeared into the void. Make good use of this opportunity. Ji Fei's voice came from the sky. Yes, Master. The three undying emperors hurriedly knelt on the ground. Whether we live or die depends on this. The emperor of the underworld said. Old bones, this time around, you're in some danger. Your body is the ancestral dragon bone. It's definitely not an easy task to regrow the flesh and blood of the ancestral dragon bone. This is equivalent to resurrecting an ancestral dragon. The corpse emperor said with a fake smile, as if he was taking pleasure in the misfortune of others. Back in the ancient heavenly court, the three undying emperors fought for the ancestral dragon bone. In the end, the bone emperor won and obtained the ancestral dragon bone. The underworld emperor and the corpse emperor were naturally unhappy. It was especially so for the emperor of the underworld. He had been tricked by the bone emperor and the corpse emperor and was defeated by them. This made him extremely depressed. In the end, the bone emperor defeated the corpse emperor. Although he was the final winner, the relationship between the three undying emperors was very strained. Of course, the three undying emperors didn't dare to fall out with each other. After all, their master, Ji Fei, definitely didn't want them to have internal strife. The bone emperor snorted coldly, but he didn't say anything. In his skull, the primordial spirit flame emitted a dazzling divine light like a burning sun. He was aware of his own situation. Although he had obtained the help of Ji Fei to fuse his primordial spirit with the ancestral dragon bone, as the corpse emperor had said, if he were to be reborn, it would be equivalent to resurrecting an ancestral dragon. The ancestral dragon was definitely the most powerful dragon in the world. It was almost impossible for such a powerful creature to be resurrected after its death. It seems like it's not a bad thing that we can't get the ancestral dragon bone. The underworld emperor sighed. The corpse emperor and the underworld emperor didn't think that the bone emperor would succeed. The more powerful a creature was, the more difficult it would be to reverse life and death and regrow flesh and blood. Of course, it wasn't that no one had taken that step. To a certain extent, the bone emperor still had a chance, but the chance was very slim. Alright, there's no point in talking too much. Let's see who will have the last laugh among the three of us. The bone emperor said coldly. Then, without any hesitation, he leaped into the immortal's transformation lake. Plop! The underworld emperor and the corpse emperor glanced at each other before leaping into the immortal transformation lake as well. The three undying emperors entered the immortal transformation lake and the entire lake boiled. The immortal chi and the death chi intertwined. The immortal chi was destroying the death chi. From time to time, miserable cries could be heard from the immortal transformation lake. The three great undying emperors were in great danger. It must be known that they were undying creatures and cultivated the power of death, which was a natural counter to the immortal Qi in the immortal transformation lake. This time, the three undying emperors had staked everything on one throw. Of course, they had their own ways to protect their lives. However, the process of dying made them suffer greatly. At this moment, Jiyu Fei had left behind a clone to sit in the sky above the celestial transformation lake, paying attention to the movements in the lake. His real body left the inner world and appeared in the cultivation room of the Wanxiang city. Why is this guy here? As soon as Jiyu Fei came out of the inner world, he sensed a guy's aura. Then, he walked out of the cultivation room and arrived at the main hall of the city lord's mansion. Haha, I was wondering what kind of wind blew an old tortoise to my place. Jiyu Fei laughed as he walked up to the throne in the main hall and sat down. The person who was carefully accompanied by the iron-blood Taoist was the old tortoise. I say, brother, this place of yours is a little too shabby. How about I give you an immortal mansion? No matter what, it's at least 100 times better than this city. An immortal mansion, I can still give it to you. The old tortoise glanced at Jiyu Fei who was sitting on the throne and said. He crossed his legs, picked up a spiritual fruit, threw it into his mouth and started chewing. Cut the crap. Do you think I don't know you? You're definitely up to no good by coming here. Tell me, what do you need my help with? Chapter 30:26. Jiyu Fei was very surprised that the old tortoise had come to Wanxiang City. One must know that the old tortoise was definitely someone who would not come without a reason. It was definitely not a good thing for him to come personally. Tell me, what's the matter? On the throne, Jiyu Fei smiled faintly at the old tortoise, who was crossing his legs and eating a spiritual fruit. That spiritual fruit was a type of scarlet blood spiritual fruit. It could strengthen the physique of living beings and make their qi and blood extremely vigorous. Yet, the iron blood Daoist used this rare spiritual fruit to entertain the old tortoise. There were many spiritual herbs planted in the medicinal fields of Wanxiang City. The scarlet blood spiritual fruit was one of them. Of course, it was also one of the rarer ones. What's the matter? Can't I come to visit my brother? The old tortoise curled his lips and said with a ruffian face. Haha, I'm naturally very happy that you came to visit me. Jiyu Fei said with a smile. Are the yin-yang fruits in the medicinal fields ripe? Go and pick some for my brother to taste. Jiyu Fei said to the iron blood Daoist who was standing below the throne. Master, the 9 yin-yang fruit trees have all borne fruits. However, there are only 3 to 5 ripe yin-yang fruits. I'll go and pick them now. The iron blood Daoist said and left the hall. You actually have yin-yang fruits here? The old tortoise said in surprise. One must know that the yin-yang fruit was a type of immortal medicine born from the yin and yang qi. A yin-yang fruit would condense a powerful yin and yang essence. It was naturally a great supplement for cultivators, especially those who cultivated the great Tao of yin and yang, as it could improve their cultivation. Of course, even cultivators who cultivated other grand Taos could eat this spirit fruit to refine the yin and yang essence, and it would naturally have the effect of improving their cultivation. However, the effect would not be as obvious as that of cultivators who cultivated the grand Tao of yin and yang. Haha, I don't lack spiritual herbs or spiritual fruits here. Jiyu Fei smiled. There were several divine springs of life in his inner world. Each divine spring of life contained an endless amount of life essence. The purest life essence was most suitable for the growth of spirit herbs. Countless spirit herbs grew around each divine spring of life. There were even legendary divine herbs and immortal herbs. Even immortal divine herbs could be seen. It could be said that in this world, only extreme sovereign existences could compare to Jiyu Fei in terms of the number of elixirs they possessed. That's true. That piece of godly land that you possess is something that I'm extremely envious of as well. Old Tortoise sighed. He had to admit that Jiyu Fei's luck was really heaven-defying. All the treasures in the world seemed to have gathered in his hands. Very soon, the iron blood Daoist entered the hall with a jade plate in his hand. There were 5 fist-sized, crystal-clear spiritual fruits on the plate. Yin and yang qi lingered above the spiritual fruits. It was an extremely pure yin and yang essence. The moment the iron-blood daoist entered the hall was filled with yin and yang qi. The source of the yin and yang qi was the 5 yin-yang fruits. These yin-yang fruits looked delicious. Old Tortoise stretched out his right hand. One of the yin-yang fruits on the jade plate in the iron-blood daoist's hand immediately flew into his hand. He took a bite. The flesh of the yin-yang fruit turned into a warm current that flowed directly from Old Tortoise's throat to his esophagus. Then, it flowed from his esophagus to his stomach. Old Tortoise only felt a mass of warm air spreading from his abdomen and soon spread all over his body. He felt warm all over and extremely comfortable. The yin and yang essence melted in his abdomen and was directly refined by him. He then integrated it into his own essence. Old Tortoise walked the Tai Huang path, but it was different from the Tai Huang path because the Tai Huang had once instructed him that it might be difficult for him to take the ultimate leap and become a supreme being. The path taken by the predecessors might not necessarily be suitable for Old Tortoise and could only play a supporting role. Old Tortoise needed to walk his own path. Haha, this yin-yang fruit really lives up to its reputation. Old Tortoise laughed and ate the yin-yang fruit in his hand in a few bites. He even swallowed the seeds together with the flesh. One more. After saying that, Old Tortoise grabbed a yin-yang fruit and ate it. After eating 2 yin-yang fruits, Old Tortoise rubbed his stomach in satisfaction. This kind of spiritual fruit had been used many times. The effect was the best when eaten the first time, and the effect of the second yin-yang fruit was much weaker. To some extent, this kind of rare spiritual fruit might only grow one in a spiritual land. However, in Jiyu Fei's inner world, this uniqueness was broken. Spiritual herbs could gather the spiritual energy of the world. If there was enough spiritual energy, many spiritual herbs could naturally grow. If there was not enough spiritual energy in the area, it would be very difficult to grow a single spiritual herb. Old Tortoise ate 4 yin-yang fruits in a row before wiping the juice from the corner of his mouth and stopped. Iron-blood daoist was shocked as he watched from the side. One must know that this was the yin-yang fruit, not those spiritual herbs that could be easily found. The yin-yang essence qi contained in a single yin-yang fruit was enough for a quasi-sage to refine for a month without being able to finish. Even a sage would need a few days to refine the yin-yang essence contained in the yin-yang fruit. Even the iron-blood daoist, with his Saint Emperor realm cultivation, could only eat 2 yin-yang fruits at most. It was not that easy to refine the yin-yang essence into other essences. This was the first time the iron-blood daoist had seen someone eat 4 yin-yang fruits in a row like the Old Tortoise. Of course, spiritual herbs were nothing to Jiyu Fei. In his inner world, there was a large patch of yin-yang trees. He only transplanted 9 of them into the herb farm in Wanxiang City. Old Tortoise, just say it. What's the matter? Don't pretend in front of me. It's meaningless, understand? Jiyu Fei said. He knew that the Old Tortoise definitely had something to do. Otherwise, he would not have come to Wanxiang City. Sigh, you brat. The Old Tortoise sighed and shook his head. Actually, I want you to protect me. What? You're going through the tribulation? Jiyu Fei was both surprised and overjoyed. The Old Tortoise was finally going to take that step. The Old Tortoise nodded. All right, when? Jiyu Fei nodded. The Old Tortoise wanted him to protect him, so he naturally would not refuse. After all, the Old Tortoise helped a lot when he was going through the quasi-supreme heavenly tribulation. 3 days later, the deserted world. The Old Tortoise said. What? You're going to the deserted world for the tribulation? Chapter 30:27. The Old Tortoise was about to undergo the heavenly tribulation of a quasi-supreme. Although Jiyu Fei already knew that the Old Tortoise was about to take that step, he did not expect the day to come so soon. In the main hall of Wanxiang City, Jiyu Fei was surprised to hear that the Old Tortoise was going to the deserted world to undergo the heavenly tribulation. Why would the Old Tortoise want to go there? The deserted world was a vast world that had yet to see the emergence of a supreme being. The current deserted world was like the ancient times of the human realm. Experts emerged in large numbers, and the entire world of cultivation was thriving. This was a great era where countless experts emerged and many quasi-supreme existences were born. All signs in the deserted world indicated that this vast world might have its first supreme of the extreme path. Was the old tortoise going to undergo the heavenly tribulation to break through to the supreme realm and become the first invincible supreme to be born in the deserted world? You want to? Jiu Fei could not help but be moved at the thought. Haha, this time, I must beat you. The old tortoise laughed. He was very confident. After all, it was definitely easier to break through to the supreme realm in the deserted world than in the heaven realm. Of course, there was another perfect world that they did not know about, the so-called otherworldly realm. The otherworldly realm was Ming Qiong's hometown. No one knew where Ming Qiong had taken the black-scaled tiger emperor to. Perhaps they had already found a way to return to the otherworldly realm. You're just playing tricks. Jiu Fei shook his head. You're too pedantic. As long as I can become a supreme of the extreme path, I'm willing to try anything. The old tortoise suddenly looked at Jiu Fei with a serious expression. Hearing the old tortoise's words, Jiu Fei could not help but feel moved. All right, I have to go back and make some preparations. When the time comes, meet me in the heaven realm and then we'll go to the deserted world together. I don't want too many people to know about this. The old tortoise stood up as he spoke. Jiu Fei also stood up when he heard the old tortoise's words. Brother, don't send me off. As old tortoise spoke, his figure suddenly disappeared into the void. Even the iron-blood Taoist, who was accompanying him, did not see how he left. This guy. Jiu Fei shook his head and sat down again. Old tortoise was about to take that step, which was a good thing for him. After all, the more powerful old tortoise was, the more powerful his help would be. Master, can you take me with you? The iron-blood Daoist was tempted. It would be strange if he wasn't tempted. One had to know that this was the heavenly tribulation of a quasi-supreme being. If he could go and experience it, it would naturally be a great thing for him. You have to go and take a look. Jiu Fei glanced at the iron-blood Taoist and saw him looking at him nervously. This guy was only in the Saint Emperor realm, not even a great sage. Even if he went to see the old tortoise's tribulation, it seemed difficult for him to see anything. If one's cultivation was not high enough, it was like looking at flowers in a fog. All right. Jiu Fei nodded. This iron-blood Daoist had followed him for a long time and was loyal to him. Jiu Fei could not bear to reject him. At times, Jiu Fei felt that his heart wasn't hard enough. However, there was nothing he could do about it. He couldn't be heartless. If he were to be heartless, he wouldn't be human. Humans have 7 emotions and 6 desires. This is human nature. Thank you, Master. The moment the iron-blood Daoist saw that Jiu Fei had agreed to it, he was elated. Don't spread the news of the old tortoise's tribulation. Just the 2 of us will know. Jiu Fei said. Yes, Master. The iron-blood Daoist replied hurriedly. All right, you can leave now. Let me have some peace. Jiu Fei waved his hand. Yes. The iron-blood Daoist retreated hurriedly. Ha. After the iron-blood Daoist left the main hall, he could not help but burst out laughing at the thought of being able to watch the old tortoise's tribulation with his master. This was something that most Saint Emperors would not even dare to imagine. Without the protection of other powerful beings, most Saint Emperors would not even dare to watch the quasi-supreme heavenly tribulation. One had to know that the might of the quasi-supreme heavenly tribulation was enough to cause the souls of Saint Emperors to dissipate. Oi, why are you so happy? Did the master give you some treasure? Outside the main hall, a young man in white robes walked up from the bottom of the stairs. This young man's face was like jade, and he was exceptionally handsome. Furthermore, the immortal Tao aura around him was boundless, as though he was a true immortal that had descended from the 9 heavens. This young man was the 3rd of the 3 great immortal servants that Jiu Fei had subdued. Each of the 3 great immortal servants had a cultivation state of a holy lord. However, if they were to fuse together and turn into an immortal body, they would be able to exhibit the fighting strength of a quasi-supreme being. Jiu Fei was the only one who could subdue an existence as such. The moment the iron-blood Daoist saw that it was an immortal servant, he could not help but feel his heart skip a beat. One had to know that this fella was a holy lord. In front of them, he was as weak as an ant. At this moment, the third immortal servant had already arrived before the Iron-Blood Daoist. "This doesn't seem to have anything to do with you," said the Iron-Blood Daoist. He was very calm because he knew that even though this immortal servant's cultivation was higher than his, the Iron-Blood Daoist definitely wouldn't dare to do anything to him. The immortal servant's expression changed and was about to erupt in anger. One had to know that this guy was nothing more than an ant before him. In the past, the Iron-Blood Daoist could slap this guy to death with a single slap. "Third brother, what are you doing?" At this time, a voice came from the distance. Afterward, a figure walked out of the void and arrived next to the Iron-Blood Daoist. "Big brother, it's nothing. I was just chatting with brother Iron-Blood." The third immortal servant hurriedly said. "Chemph, let's go. I have something to discuss with you." The eldest immortal servant stepped forward and pulled the youngest immortal servant up. Then, they instantly disappeared into the void without a trace. This guy, at this moment, a fine layer of cold sweat appeared on the Iron-Blood Daoist's forehead. This guy actually wanted to kill him. He actually wanted to kill him. The Iron-Blood Daoist truly didn't expect that this guy would really want to kill him. One had to know that the Lord was in the hall. Even if this guy wanted to kill him, he wouldn't be able to. If this guy dared to attack him, then he would definitely be the one to die. The Iron-Blood Daoist thought about it and turned to leave. As long as the Lord was here, these guys wouldn't dare to touch him no matter how strong they were. "Third brother, you're too muddle-headed. How dare you want to kill that ant?" In the residence of the three immortal brothers, the entire courtyard was enveloped by an immortal formation. No one could hear or see anything. "Big brother, that ant," the third immortal servant tried to explain. "Shut up. Do you know how dangerous it was just now? You're simply courting death." Chapter 30:28. For 2 days in a row, Jiu Fei did not leave the Wanxiang city. During these 2 days, something big happened in his inner world. At the immortal becoming lake, 2 powerful saint-level auras appeared. Someone in the lake had become a saint. Just as the two were about to trigger the heavenly tribulation, they were taken away by Jiu Fei's avatar from the immortal becoming lake. Jiu Fei's avatar took the 2 experts who were about to undergo the heavenly tribulation out of the Wanxiang city. They even left the eastern region and entered the heaven realm. Then, from the heaven realm, they entered the desolate world. Finally, they were thrown into a mountain range for them to undergo the heavenly tribulation. Compared to the heaven realm, the desolate world had a much higher chance of surviving the heavenly tribulation. After all, the desolate world was a perfect macro world with no flaws. Rumble, the tribulation cloud condensed. The 2 of them triggered the heavenly tribulation at the same time. The entire world quickly darkened and dazzling lightning flashed in the depths of the sky. The destructive aura spread over 100,000 miles, alerting many powerful creatures in the nearby regions. Soon, powerful figures appeared in the sky. Jiu Fei's avatar sat cross-legged in the void and the aura of a saint master permeated the air. The powerful creatures in the distant sky were shocked and did not dare to come close. In the desolate world, the saint masters had another title, Ancient God. The quasi-supreme masters were known as sovereigns in the desolate world. With an ancient god protecting the 2 experts who were undergoing the heavenly tribulation, the creatures in the desolate world did not dare to come close. They could only watch from afar. The heavenly tribulation was activated. Amidst the endless lightning, a vague shadow of a dragon appeared. A powerful ancestral dragon aura surged out from the dragon's shadow. When the endless lightning landed on the dragon's shadow, they were all repelled by the ancestral dragon aura. "I didn't expect this guy to succeed." Jiu Fei's avatar, who was sitting cross-legged in the sky, could not help but exclaim. The dragon that was bathing in the lightning was the Bone Emperor. In fact, Jiu Fei wasn't optimistic about Bone Sovereign's chances because his bone body was too strong. That was the bone of an ancestral dragon, which was equivalent to resurrecting an ancestral dragon. The ancestral dragon was a creature so powerful that even the heavens and earth trembled. Although it wasn't impossible to resurrect such a creature, It wasn't an easy task either. Therefore, Jiyu Fei wasn't optimistic about the Bone Sovereign's chances. Even the Emperor of the Underworld and the Corpse Emperor were not optimistic about Bone Sovereign's chances. However, the Bone Emperor, who was looked down upon by everyone, had succeeded. On the contrary, it was the Emperor of the Netherworld who had failed. His body and soul were almost destroyed. At the crucial moment, he had refined the peach of immortality to save his life. One had to admit that even Jiyu Fei had misjudged Bone Sovereign this time. The potential of Bone Sovereign was indeed huge. Such an expert with endless potential was definitely worth cultivating. The Underworld Emperor was destined to walk the path of immortality. On the other hand, the Bone Sovereign and Corpse Sovereign were reborn. Their flesh and blood were reborn. Their undead bodies were brimming with endless vitality. The creation of the heavens and earth was magical. In the midst of death, there would be a little bit of vitality. The immortal transformation lake had infinitely magnified the vitality in the Bone Sovereign and Corpse Sovereign's bodies. The Bone Sovereign and Corpse Sovereign were undergoing their tribulations at the same time. The saint-level heavenly tribulation was definitely much stronger than when they were alone. This was also a kind of test. One should know that the stronger their tribulations were, the stronger they would be compared to ordinary saint-level experts after they succeeded. This was relative. Of course, the premise was that they could survive the bombardment of the tribulations. While the Bone Sovereign and Corpse Sovereign were undergoing their tribulations, Jiyu Fei's true body had also started to head towards the heavenly world. The time he had agreed with the old tortoise had arrived. He brought the Iron Blood Daoist and the 3 immortal Dao brothers with him and headed towards the Eastern Domain's heavenly ruins. Soon, the group arrived at the heavenly world. The old tortoise's people were already waiting at the exit of the heavenly path. The one who came was actually a true dragon, a saint sovereign level existence. It was a young man with a slender figure. His face was as clear as jade. His white robes fluttered in the wind. He was an incomparably handsome young master. If it wasn't for the pair of ancestral dragon horns on his head, no one would be able to tell that he was a true dragon. This was a junior of the old tortoise, named Kang Yuan. "Where's Xiaoqing?" Jiyu Fei asked. He rode on the dragon horn Qilin beast and had a true fire Qilin by his side. There were also those 3 great immortal Dao living beings following him. This sort of extravagance was comparable to a true heavenly emperor moving out. "Senior brother Xiaoqing is in seclusion. I'm afraid it will be difficult for Uncle Master to see him," said Kang Yuan. "He's in seclusion. Could it be that he has taken that step?" Hearing this, Jiyu Fei couldn't help but be startled. Xiaoqing was a great saint of the demon race. If his cultivation broke through another level, he would be a saint sovereign. Although this Kang Yuan was a true dragon saint sovereign, in terms of seniority, he could only be Xiaoqing's junior brother. Jiyu Fei was his uncle master. "I'm not too sure about this. After you see uncle, you can ask him yourself," said Kang Yuan. His position in the demon race of the heaven world was not low. He was a junior of the old tortoise, the son of one of the old tortoise's brothers. In terms of bloodline, the Tai Huang was the first generation of the dragon race, the ancestor of the dragon race. The old tortoise was the second generation, so he could only be called the ancestral dragon. Kang Yuan was the 3rd generation. The Tai Huang bloodline in Kang Yuan's body was very pure. "All right, we'll talk about it when we see the old tortoise." Jiyu Fei nodded. Thus, Kang Yuan led the way and everyone left the exit of the ancient road to heaven. They soared into the sky and flew towards a divine island. "Who is that person?" Lord Kang Yuan actually came to greet him personally. "He seems to have a great background." "Damn, you're new here. You don't even know him?" "His Jiyu Fei." "What? His Jiyu Fei?" The demon race's experts who were guarding the ancient road to heaven were shocked. Jiyu Fei's name was well known to them. They didn't expect that they would be able to see Jiyu Fei in person. While the demon race's experts were discussing Jiyu Fei, Kang Yuan had already brought Jiyu Fei's group to the divine island in the sky. The entire island was the old tortoise's palace. Not everyone could do this. In the current heavenly realm, How many people could refine an entire divine island into a palace? Little Dao friend, you're here. Just as Kang Yuan, Jiyu Fei, and the others arrived in front of a palace, a white-haired old man suddenly walked out of the palace. This old man was the demon race's old ancestor. Old ancestor, Kang Yuan quickly greeted the old man. Greetings, old ancestor. Jiyu Fei did not dare to be negligent in front of the demon race's old ancestor. No need to be so polite. The little tortoise is waiting for you inside. Go. Chapter 30:29. The old tortoise was about to undergo the quasi-supreme heavenly tribulation, which was definitely a big deal for the entire Heaven Realm's monster race. At this moment, all the monster race experts had gathered on the old tortoise's divine island. The divine island was definitely a fairyland. The entire island was surrounded by spiritual light, and the chi of the great Tao was vast and mighty. There were waterfalls, springs, mountains, and pavilions on the island. It was a picturesque scene. Among the pavilions dotting the mountain ridges, many of them were surging with chi of blood. The powerful aura caused all sorts of strange phenomena in the sky. This was the aura emitted by extremely powerful creatures, which could affect the changes in the world. Of course, this wasn't something ordinary people could see with their naked eyes. Only existences above the saint level could see all sorts of phenomena with their Tao eyes. Wow, so many experts have come. The three spirits that followed Jiyu Fei to the divine island did not enter the main hall. Instead, they waited outside for orders. The dragon horn Chiline also stayed outside. Only the fire Chiline Bullon and the iron blood Taoist were qualified to follow Jiyu Fei into the main hall to meet the monster lord. At this moment, the three spirits were stunned by the scene in front of them. Countless powerful auras rushed out from the mountains and took form in the sky. Countless powerful beasts appeared in the sky above the mountains. There were ferocious beasts in the shape of killins, as well as huge dragons with astonishing dragon chi. There were golden phoenixes flapping their wings, as well as three-legged golden birds that looked like godly suns. These were the hidden experts of the monster race, but at this moment, they had all gathered on the old tortoise's divine island. So many ancient gods. This heaven realm actually has so many experts. The three spirits were shocked. They knew that these were only the experts of the monster race in the heaven realm. Compared to the entire heaven realm, these experts were only a small portion. How is this possible? The third of the three spirits had always been arrogant and unyielding. He had never submitted to anyone, but now, he could not help but be stunned by this scene. HMPH, 3 bumpkins. How ignorant. The dragon horn Chiline lay on the ground and said disdainfully, "What did you say?" When the third of the three spirits heard this, a vicious look appeared in his eyes, and he stared at the dragon horn Chiline beast as if he was about to attack. "Third bro, you should control your temper. The world is so big that nothing is too strange. We are just frogs at the bottom of a well." The leader of the three spirits sighed. They had been staying in the deserted world all this time and never knew that there were other realms besides the deserted world. This trip with Jiyu Fei had made them realize their own inadequacies. Initially, they thought that they were invincible in the world. But now, it seemed that they were too laughable. "Mph, you just followed Master a little earlier than us. What are you being so arrogant for?" The second of the three spirits said unhappily. They didn't dare to do anything to an ant like the dragon horn Chiline beast. "I don't dare to be arrogant in front of you. I advise you to restrain yourselves. Otherwise, you'll be the ones to suffer," the dragon horn Chiline beast said indifferently. The third of the three spirits wanted to get angry, but on second thought, he couldn't help but shudder, so he stopped talking. They were now Jiyu Fei's servants, so they should act like servants. They were no longer the masters who could do whatever they wanted in the past. At this time, in the main hall, after Jiyu Fei and the old tortoise exchanged greetings, Jiyu Fei directly asked about Xiaoqing. "Haha, you don't have to worry. Xiaoqing may be able to take that crucial step this time. I'm very optimistic about him." The old tortoise laughed and said. His disciple, Xiaoqing, really made him proud. In just a few years, Xiaoqing was already a great saint, and now he was about to take that step and become a holy lord. Once Xiaoqing succeeded, His position in the demon race would be more stable, which was also a good thing for the old tortoise. With you looking after Xiaoqing, I'm naturally very relieved. Ji Yufei nodded and said, well, I still need to make some preparations, then let's go. Kang Yuan, take your master uncle to have a rest. The old tortoise said. The quasi-supreme heavenly tribulation was not so easy to pass. Although he chose to undergo the tribulation in the deserted world, no one knew what would happen during the tribulation. Even the old tortoise had to be fully prepared. The old tortoise went to prepare. Kang Yuan took Ji Yufei out of the main hall and then flew to a nearby mountain. There was a pavilion at the top of the mountain. The three spirits and the dragon horn Chilean beast, who were waiting outside the main hall, quickly followed. This mountain was a lot higher than the other mountains. Climbing this mountain made Ji Yufei feel like he was standing at the top and looking down at all the other mountains. After taking Ji Yufei here, Kang Yuan took his leave. This place is not bad. Ji Yufei stood in front of the pavilion, looked around, then nodded and walked into the pavilion. Who is that person? How is he qualified to stay there? Two middle-aged men were standing on a mountain peak in the distance. They were looking at the tallest mountain peak and whispering to each other. I don't know who that person is, but someone who can stay there is definitely not simple, the thin middle-aged man said. Kang Yuan is here, we'll know if we ask him, the thin middle-aged man said. Kang Yuan is here, we'll know if we ask him. The other middle-aged man with a dark face said. A figure was flying past the mountain peak. Brother Kang Yuan, how about coming over? The slender middle-aged man waved at the figure that was passing by. Oh, it's Brother Tianpeng and Brother Black Tiger. The person who was passing by was Kang Yuan. When he heard the call, he turned his head and saw two figures standing on the mountain peak. Kang Yuan immediately changed his direction and flew towards the two monster clan experts, landing on the peak of the mountain. Brother Kang Yuan, who is that person? How can he stay there? The dark-faced middle-aged man pointed at the mountain peak in the distance and said, that person. Kang Yuan glanced at the two and revealed a strange smile. You two don't know him? How is that possible? Kang Yuan was in disbelief. We've only been born recently, so we naturally don't know much about the people of the present age. Old ancestor Tianpeng said. That's right, we really don't know much about the outstanding figures of the present age. Old ancestor Black Tiger nodded. Haha, even though you've only been born recently, you've definitely heard of his name. Kang Yuan glanced at the two and said with a smile. Really, who is it? Tell us. Chapter 30:30. On the old tortoise's divine island, there was an immortal pavilion that only served the most distinguished guests. The pavilion was located on the highest peak of the divine island. Over the past few days, many powerhouses of the demon clan who entered the divine island were curious about who was qualified to stay in the pavilion. Today, the answer was revealed. On another peak, old ancestor Tianpeng and old ancestor He who were chatting with Kang Yuan. They really wanted to know who was qualified to stay in the first immortal pavilion. One should know that the first immortal pavilion was a symbol of one's identity and status. In the entire demon race, there weren't many who were qualified to stay in the first immortal pavilion. Old ancestor Tianpeng and old ancestor He who naturally knew that they weren't qualified to stay in the first immortal pavilion, but they were very curious about who that person was. Haha, even if you don't know this person, you must have heard of his name. Kang Yuan said to old ancestor Tianpeng and old ancestor He who with a smile. Tell us, don't keep us in suspense. Old ancestor He who said anxiously. His surname is Jiyu, and his name is Fei. Kang Yuan said with a smile. What? Old ancestor Tianpeng and old ancestor He who were shocked. So it's him. Old ancestor He who said in disbelief. Just like what Kang Yuan said, he had heard of Ji Yufei's name a long time ago. One should know that Ji Yufei's name was well known in the cultivation world of the heaven realm and even in the human realm. It was impossible not to know about him. His Ji Yufei. Old ancestor Tianpeng looked at the first immortal pavilion and said with a trembling voice. Ji Yufei had once worked together with the old tortoise to clear the forbidden area of the heaven realm, the west underworld sea, and then the heavenly market. Recently, He even successfully passed the quasi-supreme heavenly tribulation, becoming the first person to do so since the primordial era. Everything he did was enough to shake the heaven realm and the human realm, and had a profound impact on both of them. So, the Holy Master is entertaining Ji Fei. No wonder. Seems like he's the only one qualified to stay in the number 1 immortal pavilion. Old Ancestor Black Tiger sighed. One should know that Ji Fei was a quasi-sovereign, the strongest existence below the supreme being level. Whether it was Ji Fei's achievements or his cultivation, he was definitely qualified to stay in the number 1 immortal pavilion. I still have some matters to attend to. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Kang Yuan said to Old Ancestor Tian Peng and Old Ancestor Black Tiger. Since you have matters to attend to, then we won't disturb you any longer. Please do as you please. Old Ancestor Tian Peng hurriedly said. Kang Yuan then clasped his hands at Old Ancestor Tian Peng and Old Ancestor He Hu. Then, he left the place and disappeared into the void. Ji Fei is here as well. Looks like the Sacred Master has invited quite a number of experts to help out. Old Ancestor He Hu said. He only knew that the old tortoise was about to undergo his heavenly tribulation. He didn't receive any news before this. The old tortoise was really good at keeping things a secret. In fact, the old tortoise had many enemies in the heaven realm. Among them, the strongest was the descendants of the heavenly demon clan. The descendants of the heavenly demon clan would never give up. If the experts of the heavenly demon clan knew that the old tortoise was about to undergo his heavenly tribulation, they would definitely take action. That was why the old tortoise only told everyone at the last moment that he was about to undergo his heavenly tribulation. All the experts of the demon clan who knew that the old tortoise was about to undergo his heavenly tribulation were still on the divine island. They could only leave after the old tortoise passed the quasi-sovereign heavenly tribulation. Old Ancestor Tian Peng and Old Ancestor He Hu returned to the immortal pavilion. Although they couldn't afford to stay in the number 1 immortal pavilion, they were qualified to stay in the number 19 immortal pavilion. There were 365 mountains on the old tortoise's divine island. There was an immortal pavilion on each of the mountains, which was the number of heavenly cycles. In fact, during the era of the Tai Huang had 365 generals under his command. This divine island was actually something that the Tai Huang left for the old tortoise. Of course, most of the 365 generals had already passed away. Perhaps some were still alive, but not many. One should know that back then, the 365 generals had followed the Tai Huang to battle all over the world. Back then, many of them had died in battle. Those who were still alive were definitely super ancient existences. There were a few extremely powerful auras on the divine island. No one knew who those experts were. It was very mysterious. Even some of the higher-ups of the demon clan in the heaven realm didn't know who those mysterious experts were. Of course, some of the higher-ups of the demon clan had guessed something. At this time, Ji Fei was sitting cross-legged in the number 1 immortal pavilion. He found that the entire pavilion was a spirit-gathering formation. A huge amount of spiritual energy was gathered inside. Of course, this level of spiritual energy was nothing to Ji Fei. If he wanted to absorb the spiritual energy in the celestial pavilion, he would be able to absorb all the spiritual energy gathered in the celestial pavilion in a few breaths. The 3 spirits, the Ironblood Daoist, and the others who had followed Ji Fei to the number 1 immortal pavilion were shocked by the atmosphere of the pavilion. The heaven and earth spiritual chi in this place was so dense that it almost materialized. In such a place, one could constantly absorb and refine the heaven and earth spiritual chi for their own use. Although the spiritual energy gathered in the number 1 immortal pavilion was useless to Ji Fei, it was different for the 3 spirits, the Ironblood Daoist, the Dragon Horn Chelene, and the Fire Chelene. Even paragon existences could achieve twice the results with half the effort when cultivating in the number 1 immortal pavilion. One should know that the 365 pavilions were the residences the Tai Huang had prepared for his 365 generals. The era of the 365 generals had passed countless years ago. The Tai Huang's 365 generals had become legends. However, The 365 pavilions on the Divine Island were left behind. These pavilions had witnessed the glorious era. The Dragonhorn Chelene and the Fire Chelene naturally wouldn't miss such an opportunity. They sat on the ground and began cultivating. The three spirits were shocked and also sat down. This was because the number 1 immortal pavilion was shrouded in the aura of the Great Path. Sensing this aura of the Great Path allowed the three spirits to see another world. This was a completely different method of cultivation from the desolate world. This also gave the three spirits hope. The three spirits had been stuck in the Paragon realm for countless years. Although they had a secret method that could increase their battle strength to that of a paragon, they had never been able to make a breakthrough in their own cultivation. At this time, some experts of the demon clan came. Under Kang Yuan's lead, they entered the area where the immortal pavilions were located. The 365 immortal pavilions couldn't be fully occupied because there weren't that many experts of the demon clan in the entire heaven realm. Not all of them were qualified to stay in the immortal pavilions. In this way, a day passed quickly. When night fell, almost no experts of the demon clan came. Early the next morning, Ji Yufei was invited by the old tortoise. In the main hall, there were many experts of the demon race gathered. These experts had at least the cultivation of the great saint realm. There were 5 or 6 great demons and even holy venerables. This surprised Ji Yufei. It seemed that the old tortoise's strength was not ordinary. No wonder he could carve out such a large territory in the heaven realm. Sitting on the throne in the middle of the main hall was the old turtle. "Brother, you're here. Come and sit next to me." On the throne, the old turtle saw Ji Yufei and called Ji Yufei over. At this time, all the experts of the demon clan in the main hall looked at Ji Yufei. Among these experts, some were dissatisfied, some were shocked, and some were stunned. There seemed to be only one person in the world who could call the old turtle brother. That person was Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei smiled and did not say anything. He walked directly to the old turtle, ascended the throne, and sat directly next to the old turtle. He simply ignored the envious and hateful gazes of the experts of the demon clan below. Yes, envious and hateful. At this time, all the experts of the demon clan in the main hall more or less had this kind of emotion. Ji Yufei, all the experts of the demon clan looked at Ji Yufei sitting next to the old turtle. Every expert of the demon clan had a different mood. Among these experts of the demon clan, some had more or less grudges with Ji Yufei. For example, the Golden Crow clan of the Heaven Realm. Although the Golden Crow clan of the Heaven Realm was a branch of the Fire clan, they were also members of the Demon clan. When Ji Yufei was in the southern mountains of the Heaven Realm, he had friction with the Fire clan of the southern mountains. At this time, the Golden Crow ancestor stood in the main hall and looked at Ji Yufei on the throne with a complicated expression. "All right, everyone's here. Let's go." The old turtle stood up from the throne and waved his sleeve. A rain of light instantly enveloped everyone in the main hall. In the next moment, everyone disappeared in the rain of light. Ji Yufei was no exception. He realized that he had arrived in a void. There was no sky or earth here, only an endless void. He realized that the other experts of the demon clan in the main hall had also appeared in this void. Everyone was surprised, but they did not know what the old turtle was up to. At this time, the old turtle's figure also appeared in the void. He was holding something in his right hand. To be precise, it was an array board. "Everyone, please lend me a hand," said the old turtle. Old Tortoise said. Then, he took out the formation plate in his hand. The formation plate flew up from his hand and instantly became as big as a mountain. An incomparably powerful aura immediately spread out from the formation plate and filled the entire void. The experts of the great demon clan could not help but be shocked when they saw this scene. They saw that the array board that was as big as a mountain constantly had runes appearing on it, and it actually emitted the aura of countless great paths. "What is the old turtle doing?" Ji Yufei was somewhat puzzled. Could this be the legendary Myriad Paths plate? An old member of the demon clan suddenly said in shock. "What? The Myriad Paths plate? The Myriad Paths plate that can smelt all great paths?" Chapter 30-31. The myriad Tao plate was a legendary supreme Tao treasure that could refine the myriad Taos of heaven and earth. It could be said that its power wasn't below that of the mountain and river cauldron or the Taihuang seal. This was because the supreme existence that refined the myriad Tao plate was known as the sovereign of myriad Taos. He was a supreme even older than the Taihuang seal, and his time could be traced back to the primordial era, before the era of legends. Is that really the myriad Tao plate? In the empty void, Ji Yufei stared at the giant plate floating in the air and listened to the mutterings of the demonic elders around him. He couldn't help but feel indescribably shocked. He'd heard of the myriad Tao plate, but he'd always thought that the sovereign of myriad Taos was just a legend. Perhaps there hadn't been such a person during the primordial era. One had to know that the sovereign of myriad Taos was an extremely powerful existence. Everyone, lend me a bit of your power. I'll owe you all a favor. How about that? As the demonic elders pointed at the plate, the old turtle's silhouette appeared on top of it. At this time, the group of demon race experts also knew why the old turtle brought them here. The old turtle wanted to borrow their strength to fight against the quasi-supreme heavenly tribulation. It seemed that the old turtle had thought of everything that could happen. Ji Yufei also understood very well that the old tortoise was preparing for the worst. All the great demons present were at least great sage great demons. If each great demon lent out a portion of their power and gathered it together, it would be a power so powerful that even a holy venerate would be fearful. Old brother, you should have said so earlier if you wanted to borrow power. Ji Yufei immediately rushed forward and fired a strand of essence chi at the huge formation board. This was the essence chi of a quasi-sovereign. After the essence chi was absorbed by the formation board, 9 powerful Tao patterns immediately appeared on the formation board under the old tortoise's feet. The quasi-supreme being's essence chi that was absorbed by the array disk was stored in the 9 Tao patterns. This was Ji Yufei's power of the great Tao, a quasi-supreme power. Once it was unleashed, it would be equivalent to Ji Yufei's all-out attack. There weren't many existences in the world that could block his all-out attack. Thank you, brother. The old turtle said happily. It was still this brother of his who was loyal. Look at these so-called old monsters of the demon race. They were all hesitating and not straightforward at all. Under Ji Yufei's lead, the demon folk old-timers stepped forward one after another, sent streams of essence energy into the formation plate, and then retreated to the side. Dozens of demon folk old-timers poured their own quintessence energy into the formation disk, which pleased the old turtle very much. Thank you, everyone, for your help. I cannot thank you enough. Old Tortoise said. At this time, the matrix plate under his feet was filled with dozens of auras of the Great Path. After absorbing so much spiritual essence, the entire matrix plate had become somewhat different. Although there were only a few dozen strands of Great Path essence chi on the formation plate, it was as if there were tens of thousands of auras intertwining, as if the power of tens of thousands of great paths was constantly smelting together. All right, it's time for us to set off. As Old Tortoise spoke, the array board under his feet rapidly shrank. Then, it flew up and landed in his hand. With a wave of his sleeve, everyone felt the world spin around them. In the next moment, they found themselves once again in the main hall. Rumble, the entire divine island began to shake. Then, rays of demonic light soared into the sky, enveloping the entire island. The entire island soared into the sky, turning into a ball of demonic light that directly rushed into the depths of the starry sky. At this time, all the cultivators in the West Nether Sea felt a mighty energy fluctuation from high up in the sky. The divine island has left. The demon folk guarding the exit of the ancient road to heaven were indescribably shocked. The sudden departure of the divine island made them feel a trace of nervousness. One should know that the old turtle and the demonic ancestor on the divine island were their greatest support. With them around, no other forces would dare to act rashly. However, once the divine island left, they would lose their greatest support. This was definitely not a good thing for them, who were guarding the exit of the ancient road to heaven. What's going on? Why did the ancestor and the others leave? Outside the exit of the ancient road to heaven, a demon folk expert stared dumbfoundedly at the demonic light that disappeared into the depths of the starry sky. "How would I know?" a greater demonfolk standing next to him said in an annoyed tone. "I hope they only left for a while." Another demonfolk expert mumbled to himself. They were guarding the exit of the ancient road to heaven, and they even collected tolls from the cultivators entering and exiting the heaven realm. Such actions could be said to have angered all the cultivators. However, the demonfolk of the heaven realm were incomparably powerful, and they had the ancestor of the demonfolk guarding the west nether sea. All the cultivators that entered and exited the heaven realm dared not say anything. However, now that the divine island of the demonfolk had left, no one knew what would happen next. All these years, the toll collected by the demonfolk was definitely an astronomical figure. This made all the forces in the heaven realm and human realm extremely jealous. However, none of the forces dared to do anything to the demonfolk of the heaven realm. However, as the divine island of the demonfolk left, the attitudes of the forces in the heaven realm and human realm changed slightly. Rumble, at this moment, deep in the starry sky, a ball of demonic light wrapped around the divine island. It arrived before the ancient heavenly court's ruins and stopped outside the southern heavenly gate. Following the arrival of the divine island, countless cultivators were alarmed. One should know that there were countless cultivators stationed outside the southern heavenly gate. That's, an antique expert rushed out from the camp. He couldn't help but change his expression when he saw the divine island shrouded in the demonic light of the great Tao. "Why are they here?" the antique expert murmured to himself. Soon enough, many powerful figures appeared in the sky. All of them carefully stared at the divine island shrouded in the demonic light of the great Tao. The forces stationed outside the southern heavenly gate were very uneasy about the arrival of the divine island. One should know that the divine island was no ordinary divine island. It was the old tortoise's palace. The divine island's appearance here meant that the old tortoise was here as well. Most importantly, the old tortoise had an extremely powerful senior. That existence was definitely the ancestor of the demon folk. He was of the same generation as the Taihuang and had an irreplaceable supreme status in the demon folk. There was no doubt that the ancestor of the demon folk was powerful. Are they going to enter the ruins of the ancient heavenly court? An antique expert murmured to himself. At this moment, the divine island shrouded in the demonic light of the great Tao moved again. It directly charged towards the southern heavenly gate. Chapter 30-32. Rumble. In the dim ruins of the ancient celestial court, a beam of demonic light cut through the void and rushed toward the depths of the ruins. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the horizon. That's, wherever the demonic light passed, it alarmed all the cultivators along the way. On top of a barren mountain stood a white-robed young man. He looked at the demonic light that flew across the sky with a complicated expression. He actually entered the ruins. Is he trying to pass the heavenly tribulation in these ruins? The white-robed youth looked in the direction where the demonic light had disappeared, and there was a glint in the depths of his eyes. After that, he took out a jade talisman from his body and crushed it. Crack! The moment the jade talisman in the white-robed young man's hand broke, 5 beams of fire immediately rushed out of his hand and disappeared into the void. Roar! Soon, in an uninhabited area of the heaven realm, an earth-shattering roar came from a valley filled with murderous aura. The entire void shook. An extremely powerful figure walked out of the valley. At the same time, in another uninhabited area, there was also an extremely powerful fluctuation of power. A ferocious beast that looked like a dragon but was not a dragon rushed out of a bottomless ravine. Its powerful murderous aura filled the world. WWW, the Son of Saint is summoning. Could it be that it's time to fight the Taihuang bloodline? The dragon-like beast muttered to itself. Then, it rushed into the sky and into the starry sky. As the beast rushed into the starry sky, 3 terrifying figures that were so powerful that they made the world tremble also rushed out from other uninhabited areas of the heaven realm. The 5 supreme existences entered the starry sky at almost the same time and rushed toward the ruins of the ancient celestial court in the depths of the starry sky. At this time, the divine island controlled by the old turtle arrived at the center of the ruins. There was a vast chaotic chi there, and a towering mountain appeared in front of them. The mountain was huge. Even though the upper half of it had been broken, the mountain was still extremely huge. Endless chaotic chi lingered on the mountain. An incomparably powerful aura spread out from the top of the mountain, as if a supreme existence was hiding in the mountain. The divine island that was shrouded in the demonic light of the great path stopped. At this time, from the 365 immortal pavilions on the divine island, more and more experts of the demon clan rushed out into the sky. This is the Chaos God Mountain? Great ancestor Tian Peng stared at the incomparably huge black mountain in front of him. Although it was separated by a layer of demonic light of the great Tao, he could still sense an immense pressure. The legendary number 1 divine mountain of all time? Many demon clan experts looked at the mountain in front of them in shock. The ancient heavenly court is indeed a great work. With the divine mountain as the center, they built such a huge heavenly court. It should be flourishing for tens of thousands of years, but why? Ancestor Black Tiger said. With the primordial sacred mountain guarding the ancient heavenly court, the ancient heavenly court shouldn't have declined so easily. However, things were unexpected. The era of the ancient heavenly court didn't last long before the entire ancient heavenly court completely declined. At that moment, Old Tortoise and Jiu Fei also appeared in the sky. Rumble. The divine island that had stopped in the void began to move. It shot into the sky and rushed towards the divine mountain. The entire divine island was huge, but it was nothing in front of the divine mountain. Soon, the divine island rushed into the void of chaos above the chaotic divine mountain. In the depths of the void of chaos, a ball of divine light floated in the chaotic chi. Above the ball of light, there were illusory images of all things in the world. It was the reflection of the world. Under Old Tortoise's control, the divine island rushed directly in front of the ball of light and stopped. Compared to the ball of light, the divine island was too big. It's time for you to perform, Jiu Fei said to Old Tortoise. Old Tortoise smiled and rushed out of the divine island. He stretched out his hand and the entire divine island immediately shrunk and fell into his hand. The people on the divine island became as small as dust particles. Old Tortoise laughed, then took a step forward and walked into the light ball. At that moment, in the chaotic chi near the ball of light, a powerful figure appeared. It's him. What is he doing? Powerful beings in the chaotic chi recognized Old Tortoise, but no one dared to stop him from entering the ball of light. They let him cross over. Offending Old Tortoise was the most unwise thing to do and no one was willing to offend him. Soon, the news of Old Tortoise entering the deserted world spread. It was not a secret. In fact, Old Tortoise acted so mysteriously in order to not let people know that he was about to undergo the divine tribulation. However, he also knew that his enemies must have known of his whereabouts. This was why Old Tortoise asked Jiu Fei to protect him. After all, Jiu Fei was now a quasi-supreme. Without a true supreme, who could be a match for Jiu Fei? Moreover, Jiu Fei had more than one supreme weapon of the way. With Jiu Fei protecting him, Old Tortoise felt more at ease. That guy is definitely going to undergo the divine tribulation. When the news reached the Buddhist kingdom of the West in the human world, Monk Heavenly Dharma felt helpless. If Old Tortoise also succeeded, then his situation would be even more worrying. At the peak of Spirit Mountain, a little monk sat cross-legged on a boulder with an alms bowl in his hand. Buddhist light radiated from him and the image of a Buddha loomed over him. The air seemed to be filled with Sanskrit chants and Buddhist aura. This little monk was Fan Xiu. His cultivation had reached a point where he was about to make a breakthrough. He needed to find a place to undergo the divine tribulation. It was possible to undergo the divine tribulation in the human world, but the heavenly Tao in the human world was flawed. Undergoing the divine tribulation there would cause flaws in one's great Tao. This was why Fan Xiu didn't want to undergo the divine tribulation in the human world. No one wanted their great Tao to be flawed. Thus, undergoing the divine tribulation in the heavenly realm or the deserted world became the first choice for the old antiques. However, not everyone could successfully undergo the divine tribulation of a quasi-supreme. Looks like I'll have to go to the deserted world too. Fan Xiu suddenly opened his eyes and muttered to himself. The deserted world was also a perfect world. Undergoing the divine tribulation there wouldn't cause a flaw in one's great Tao. You want to go to the deserted world? At this moment, a figure walked over from the distance. It was Heavenly Dharma wearing the sloppy kasaya. When little monk Fan Xiu saw Heavenly Monk Fa Tian, he couldn't help but snort coldly. His originally gentle gaze immediately became sharp. Back when Jiyu Fei was undergoing the divine tribulation, this guy had abandoned him and fled on his own. How hateful. Chapter 30-33. The relationship between the two giants of the West Earth Buddhism sect was not as good as it seemed to outsiders. Although little monk Fan Xiu and great monk Fa Tian were not like fire and water, there were still many open and secret conflicts between the two giants of the Buddhism sect. Little monk Fan Xiu's origin was very mysterious. He was a freak that old tortoise found when he was digging the tomb of the ancient Buddhist lord. As for Heavenly Monk Fa Tian, he was one of the experts from the Heavenly Buddha Tao. The Heavenly Buddha Tao was a Buddhist heaven created by a Buddhist lord since the ancient times, and Heavenly Monk Fa Tian was the leader of the Heavenly Buddha Tao's Buddhist princes. Heavenly Monk Fan Xiu also obtained an ancient Buddhist robe that was left behind by the ancient Buddhist lord. With this robe, even little monk Fan Xiu had to be weaker than Heavenly Monk Fan Xiu. Both little monk Fan Xiu and Heavenly Monk Fan Xiu were Orthodox Buddhists. At this time, the two giants of West Earth's Buddhism appeared at the peak of Spiritual Mountain at the same time, attracting the attention of all Buddhist experts. One should know that West Earth's Buddhism had been divided into two factions. One was Heavenly Buddha Path led by Heavenly Monk Fan Xiu and the other was Western Earth Buddhism Path led by Little Monk Fan Xiu. Heavenly Buddha Path was originally above Buddhism in the human world. The Buddhist princes of Heavenly Buddha Path claimed to be the direct descendants of the ancient Buddhist lord. As a result, the Buddhist Vedanta in the human world were somewhat dissatisfied. Thus, they formed a faction with Little Monk Fan Xiu as the leader. The power of Buddhism in the human world wasn't small. Under Little Monk Fan Xiu were Buddhist Lord Qinglian and a group of Buddhist experts. However, behind Heavenly Monk Fan Xiu was a group of Buddhist experts from Heavenly Buddha Path. The forces between the two factions were evenly matched. Neither could do anything to the other. Why don't you go? At the peak of Spiritual Mountain, Little Monk Fan Xiu wanted to turn around and leave, but he suddenly stopped and turned to Heavenly Monk Fan Xiu who was sitting cross-legged on a big rock. Heavenly Monk Fan Xiu didn't say anything. Instead, he closed his eyes as if he was meditating. Little Monk Fan Xiu smiled and with a sway of his body, he instantly turned into a ray of Buddhist light that soared into the sky. He broke through the void and disappeared. Many Buddhist experts on Spiritual Mountain saw Fan Xiu leave, but no one knew where he was going. Not even Buddhist Lord Green Lotus knew where he was going. Buddhist Lord Qing Lian was the current Buddhist lord of the West Earth Buddhist sect. His cultivation was undoubtedly powerful because he had fought against Jiyu Fei in the past. After so many years, Jiyu Fei had already become a quasi-supremacy. Although this Buddhist Lord Green Lotus couldn't compare to Jiyu Fei, his cultivation had already reached a realm that others couldn't reach. The foundation of Buddhism in the mortal world was incomparably deep. One must know that the Buddhism in the mortal world was the inheritance of the ancient Buddhist lord. Although Buddhist Lord Qinglian's current cultivation base was not as strong as Great Monk Fa Tian and Little Monk Fan Xiu, he was still the strongest existence in the Buddhist sect. Buddhist Lord Green Lotus suddenly opened his eyes in a Buddhist palace on the Spirited Mountain when Little Monk Fan Xiu left the Spirited Mountain. Is Arhat Fan Xiu really going to the heavenly realm? Buddhist Lord Qinglian muttered to himself. His body was surrounded by Buddhist light, and a wheel as bright as the sun appeared behind his head. Within the wheel, there were Buddhist runes intertwining, condensing an extremely powerful force of Buddhist way. This Buddhist lord's cultivation had already reached the point where he was about to break through to the holy venerable realm. Then, Buddhist Lord Green Lotus closed his eyes and sat cross-legged on the lotus seat like an ancient Buddha. Buddhist light bloomed from his body, and the lotus petals of the lotus seat began to close. In the end, Buddhist Lord Green Lotus was wrapped in a golden lotus. Just as Little Monk Fan Xiu left the Spirited Mountain, A demonic roar that made everyone's heart palpitate came from a huge demonic cave in the depths of the northern demonic region. In the sky above the demonic cave, yin-yang qi was vast. A yin-yang Dao diagram that covered half the sky suppressed the void. The terrifying power of the yin-yang great Dao suppressed the demonic cave. In the middle of the yin-yang Dao diagram, a figure sat cross-legged. It was an unimaginably powerful figure. The endless power of the yin-yang great Dao radiated from his body, shocking the heavens. This person seemed to have become a part of the yin-yang great Dao. With his own strength, he suppressed the entire northern demonic region. Boom! At this moment, a powerful demonic power suddenly rushed out from the depths of the demonic cave and directly collided with the huge yin-yang Dao diagram. Rumble! The entire Dao diagram trembled. Endless yin-yang Dao runes appeared and interweaved on the Dao diagram. The power of the yin-yang great Dao erupted and obliterated the demonic power. Roar! A terrifying demonic roar came from the depths of the demonic cave. Endless demonic qi surged out from the depths of the demonic cave. Within the demonic qi, there seemed to be a terrifying demonic shadow looming. However, all the demonic qi that surged out from the demonic cave was blocked by the yin-yang Dao diagram. It was sealed within the demonic cave, and not a single trace of demonic qi could leak out. The demonic qi was corroding the yin-yang Dao diagram. However, the yin-yang Dao qi that descended from the yin-yang Dao diagram was also obliterating the demonic qi. It's getting more and more restless. The figure sitting cross-legged on the yin-yang Dao diagram suddenly muttered to himself. An even more powerful yin-yang great Dao qi surged out from his body. Rumble! The yin-yang Dao diagram continued to tremble. The yin-yang Dao qi descended, and the demonic qi that surged out from the depths of the demonic cave was immediately suppressed. Very quickly, the demonic roar in the depths of the demonic cave disappeared, and the countless demons and devils in the demonic cave calmed down. Is a great calamity coming? The figure continued to mutter to himself. He suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. His eyes were incomparably deep. The demons in the depths of the northern demonic cave were getting more and more restless. This made the ruthless person who was suppressing the demonic cave feel somewhat uneasy. This was not a good thing. If the demons in the demonic cave broke out of the seal, the entire human world would fall into chaos. The human world would usher in a demonic calamity, and once again enter the age of darkness. In the other forbidden areas of the soaring dragon ancestral star, there were also strange movements. In the abyss of immortals and devils that separated the northern demonic region from the northern domain of the soaring dragon ancestral star, there were shadows of immortals and devils roaring. It was as if the world of chaos was really coming. At this time, the experts of the major forces were trying their best to improve their cultivation and combat strength. On the soaring dragon ancestral star in the human world, there were constantly people undergoing tribulations. However, many experts chose to undergo tribulations in the heaven realm. The heaven realm was a perfect world with a flawless heavenly Tao. However, not everyone dared to undergo tribulations in the heaven realm because it was much more dangerous than in the human world. Some living beings admitted that they could not withstand the tribulations in the heaven realm, so they settled for the next best thing and chose to undergo tribulations in the human world. Of course, most of the experts of the major forces who could afford it chose to undergo tribulations in the desolate world. In the eyes of all the cultivators, the desolate world was the most ideal place to undergo tribulations. However, not everyone could enter the desolate world. Without the protection of a saint, who could enter the desolate world? Even a saint would have to take great risks to enter the desolate world. At this time, the old turtle had already entered the desolate world. He directly released the shrunken divine island in his hand, and a divine island appeared in the desolate domain of chaos. The desolate domain of chaos was the territory of the ruler of chaos. However, the ruler of chaos had long left, and there were only a few powerful chaotic creatures guarding this half of the divine mountain of chaos. These chaotic creatures were no match for the old tortoise. When the old tortoise appeared, these chaotic creatures had already hidden themselves. The old turtle had a foothold in the desolate world. It was a place of immortal essence where the essence of the 5 elements gathered. Naturally, this place of immortal essence was not without an owner. The old turtle had seized this place from a creature of the 5 elements that was born from the essence of the 5 elements. On that day, the old turtle fought with the owner of this place, the ruler of 5 elements. He displayed his might and broke the great sword formation of the 5 elements, scaring away the ruler of 5 elements. The old turtle stepped into the divine island and met up with Jiyu Fei. Then, he drove the divine island to his territory, the place of immortal essence of 5 elements. A beam of demonic light of the great path wrapped around the divine island and flew over the endless mountains of the desolate world, startling countless powerful creatures hidden in the mountains. That guy is here again. The old turtle's divine island flew over the area near the Kangcheong city, but it startled Emperor Qin, who was in the city. Swoosh! A figure immediately appeared in the sky above the Kangcheong city. The aura of the Supreme Emperor, that is, Emperor Qin, stood in the void sky and looked in the direction where the demonic light of the great path disappeared. His eyes became profound. He had lived for countless years, but even he himself had forgotten how long he had lived. He had experienced the darkest times and fought against the terrifying great demon. He had almost died, but he still managed to survive. Emperor Qin thought about it and took a step forward. He chased in the direction where the demonic light of the great path disappeared in the void sky in an instant. Soon, the old turtle's divine island rushed into the immortal essence of 5 elements and floated in the air above it. The old turtle needed to adjust himself to the best condition before he could undergo the divine tribulation. This required some time. Therefore, Jiyu Fei left the divine island and headed for his territory in the desolate world. His territory was also a place of immortal essence. This place of immortal essence was a natural place of immortal path that nurtured the 3 spirits of the celestial path. However, when Jiyu Fei came to the outside of this natural place of immortal path, he could not help but stop because he sensed an extremely powerful aura coming from the depths of this place of immortal essence. Jiyu Fei's expression changed. He never expected that someone would take advantage of his place while he was away. This made him furious. Leave quickly. If you take another step forward, I'll make sure you die without a burial ground. Chapter 30-34. A spiritual ground that could nurture a primordial immortal being was definitely extraordinary, especially in the depths of this spiritual ground where the power of the great Tao was condensed. Cultivating in a place like this would definitely yield twice the result with half the effort. Jiyu Fei's spiritual ground was not inferior to the old tortoise's spiritual ground of the 5 elements. But now, when Jiyu Fei returned to this spiritual ground, he found that his territory was occupied by someone else. How dare you take over my territory? Outside the spirit land, Jiyu Fei was infuriated. Just which idiot had done such a thing? How dare he do such a thing? You, hurry up and leave. If my master is alarmed, your body and soul will be destroyed. A being walked out of the mist. A powerful silhouette was faintly discernible in the mist, emitting an extremely powerful aura. Jiyu Fei's cultivation had truly returned to its original state. As long as he didn't reveal his cultivation and battle prowess, no one would be able to see through his true strength. Who is your master? Hurry up and tell him to come out and see me. Jiyu Fei's expression darkened. He stared at the being in the mist and spoke with an extremely cold tone. Although the mist was in the way, he could still see through it with a single glance. This arrogant being was a divine crocodile covered in purplish-green scales. Strangely enough, this divine crocodile was emitting a powerful immortal aura. A ferocious beast that cultivates the Tao. Jiyu Fei muttered to himself. What did you say? At this moment, the divine crocodile in the immortal mist heard Jiyu Fei's words. Its eyes immediately revealed an incomparably ferocious gaze, and a ferocious aura immediately erupted from the divine crocodile. A beast is still a beast in the end. Even if it cultivates, it's still a beast. Its ferocious nature cannot be changed. Jiyu Fei shook his head. Who are you calling a beast? The divine crocodile was enraged. I called you a beast. Didn't you hear me? Jiyu Fei said to the enraged divine crocodile. You're courting death. The divine crocodile roared, and a beam of divine light emerged from between its eyebrows. It was as if a divine eye had opened, and a beam of terrifying destructive light shot out from between its eyebrows, piercing towards Ji Yufei. The space of the deserted world was extremely stable, but wherever the destructive light passed, transparent ripples spread out. Humph! Ji Yufei sneered. He didn't move at all. When the light of destruction reached a meter in front of him, it exploded with a bang, as if it had hit an invisible wall. What? The godly crocodile was taken aback. The other party did not seem to be as weak as he looked. A puny human was actually able to block its attack. To the divine crocodile, the human race was synonymous with weakness in the deserted world. Of course, the situation of the human race had taken a turn for the better, but the divine crocodile's perception had not changed. The weakness of the human race was deeply ingrained in the divine crocodile's mind, and it was difficult to change. Many of the human tribes that had gathered in the place of fairy spirits had been driven away. The human race was not qualified to enter the place of fairy spirits. Ji Yufei did not expect that the human race here would suffer a catastrophe again. Most of the human tribes that had moved into the spiritual land had been destroyed, becoming food for the divine crocodile and the other powerful creatures. I don't care who your master is. How dare you kill the people I want to protect? Go to hell, all of you. As he spoke, Ji Yufei reached out his hand and grabbed at the divine crocodile in the holy mist. A heaven-devouring power rushed out of his hand. The divine crocodile felt its body tighten, and then it flew towards the human uncontrollably. The divine crocodile was extremely shocked. It struggled with all its might, and powerful waves of energy exploded from its body, trying to break free. However, it was all in vain. The divine crocodile's huge body quickly shrank, and Ji Yufei caught it in his hand. At that moment, the godly crocodile realized that it had provoked an unimaginably powerful being. Its intestines were green with regret. It shouldn't have been so arrogant at the beginning. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. My lord, please spare me. My master is the sky-devouring dominator. The divine crocodile in Ji Yufei's hand begged for mercy, but it did not forget to say the name of its master. Ha ha! Ji Yufei laughed. You still want to use your master's name to pressure me? Sky-devouring dominator, is that the legendary sky-devouring beast? So this guy knew about its master. It seemed like this guy wouldn't dare to kill it. The divine crocodile heard Ji Yufei's mutterings and felt that it had a chance to live. However, what Ji Yufei said next scared it silly. I haven't eaten a sky-devouring beast yet. I can kill it and make a pot of nourishing soup. Ji Yufei licked his lips and said. The sky-devouring beast was said to be able to devour the heavens. This was not a legend, nor was it an exaggeration. An adult sky-devouring beast could indeed devour a world in a single bite. Of course, it was impossible for a sky-devouring beast to devour a truly perfect world in a single bite. Just as Ji Yufei was about to grab the divine crocodile to death, a figure appeared silently behind him. Then, an earth-shattering roar rang out from behind him. A terrifying sound wave swept towards Ji Yufei, and the air around him rippled like water. All the flora and fauna around him, and even a nearby mountain, were pulverized by the roar and vanished into thin air. This was an extremely terrifying sound assassination technique. The might of that powerful existence's roar shook the entire world. The entire ground in front of Ji Yufei seemed to have been shoveled away, and the ground was filled with dust that was shattered by the sound wave. However, the terrifying sound assassination technique was unable to cause any harm to Ji Yufei. On the other hand, the divine crocodile in Ji Yufei's hand started to crack under the impact of the sound assassination technique. Ji Yufei's clothes and hair fluttered in the wind. He looked completely at ease. You're a paragon. At this moment, a terrified voice came from behind Ji Yufei. Chapter 30-35. Nine-Headed Lion. Ji Yufei calmly stared at the middle-aged man with 9 heads growing out of his neck. That golden-haired middle-aged man was looking at Ji Yufei as well. At the same time, the face of this golden-haired middle-aged man was filled with fear. To think that you're not affected at all, the golden-haired middle-aged man remarked. His voice was as loud as a bell, filled with a murderous aura. Any ordinary living being would definitely not be able to endure this sort of killing aura that could cause one to go crazy. It's just the lion's roar. Nothing much. Next up, it's my turn. Ji Fei chuckled out. You. The golden-haired middle-aged man that was the nine-headed lion could not help but stumble back a step in panic. This beast knew that this human was not to be trifled with. Roar. Ji Fei let out a long roar, causing the entire void to vibrate as a series of pitch-black cracks appeared in the void. In the next moment, the nine-headed lion revealed its true form. A golden lion that was the size of a small mountain appeared in the world. Its 9 heads reared their heads into the heavens and roared out, causing a terrifying sound wave to burst forth. In the next moment, the other 8 heads of the 9-headed lion exploded and transformed into a mist of blood. The 9-headed lion was blasted 30 kilometers away. Boom. It smashed through a mountain before smashing into an ancient forest. Boom. 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 It smashed through a mountain before smashing into an ancient forest. Is that the legendary Azure Dragon's roar? Very soon, that golden lion rushed out of the forest. Of the 9 heads on its neck, there was only 1 left. Furthermore, its glabella had already split open, with fresh blood oozing out. In the next moment, a series of cracks appeared on the body of this mighty 9-headed lion. It was like a golden statue that had just cracked open, before shattering into millions of pieces that rained down from the heavens. Who dares to be so arrogant as to kill the immortal servant of I, the devouring heaven's God King? The moment the 9-headed lion fell, a voice rang out from the depths of this spirit land. That powerful existence in the depths of the spirit land had finally been alerted. Master, save me. At this moment, the god crocodile in Ji Fei's hands cried out. In this world, no one can save you. Ji Fei turned around and looked into the depths of the spiritual land. He saw endless divine light of the great path rushing out from the depths of the spiritual land. A huge figure bathed in the divine light was also looking at him. Bang! In the next moment, the godly crocodile in Ji Fei's hand shattered into a cloud of blood mist. Both its body and soul were destroyed, and it could not be more dead. You deserve to die. In the depths of the spiritual land, a monstrous murderous aura erupted from the mountain-like figure. Boundless celestial light of the great path erupted from the figure. The figure seemed to have turned into a supreme being of the immortal Tao, as if it had fused with the carnate great Tao of this spiritual land. So there's something you want here. When Ji Fei saw this, he finally understood why this heaven-devouring beast would want to occupy a piece of land that had an owner. This heaven-devouring beast wanted to snatch away the fortune of this spiritual land. Moreover, this guy seemed to be on the verge of success. Heaven-devouring beast. The figure bathed in boundless celestial light suddenly surged with an extremely strong devouring power. The space was collapsing, and the devouring power immediately enveloped Ji Fei. Ji Fei felt his body tighten, and his entire body flew towards the depths of the spiritual land involuntarily. He did not resist the devouring power. However, when he quickly approached the figure, his body shook, and the devouring power on his body was immediately dispersed. The entire world shook violently. Vroom. The sky seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. With Ji Fei at the center, pitch-black spatial cracks spread, like black lightning bolts, and disappeared into the void in an instant. One had to admit that the space of the deserted world was extremely stable. The moment the space broke, it was immediately repaired by the power of the world. Just like real lightning, it only appeared for a moment. What? Seeing this, the huge beast was shocked. It stared at Ji Fei with its starry eyes, then opened its mouth and inhaled. An even stronger devouring power surged out of the huge beast's mouth. Roar! Ji Fei let out a long roar, and a terrifying killing power of sound erupted, clashing with the devouring power and dispersing the devouring power. The boundless power of the celestial way was dispersed by the killing power of sound. The huge figure also dissipated in the void, and the real heaven-devouring beast appeared high up in the sky. It was a ferocious beast shrouded in the divine light of the celestial way. Even with Ji Fei's cultivation, he could only see a blurry silhouette of the beast. Ruler of the human race. the heaven-devouring beast said. Jiyu Fei's azure dragon roar did not have much of an impact on it. This is my territory. Who the hell do you think you are? How dare you take over my territory? Looking at the beast before him, Jiyu Fei's face was cold beyond anything else. Your territory? You're that Jiyu Fei. The heaven-devouring beast glared at Jiyu Fei and remarked coldly. How could it have known from the guards of this spirit land that the owner of this place was a human by the name of Jiyu Fei? However, this beast could not be bothered with all that. Immediately, it devoured all the powerful living beings that were guarding this spirit land, as well as quite a number of humans. All the people in the largest few human tribes that had moved into the spiritual land were swallowed by this ferocious beast in one gulp. For this beast, the human race was nothing more than some decent food. I've never eaten a heaven-devouring beast before. I'll slaughter you and boil you into a pot of nourishing soup to nourish myself. Jiyu Fei licked his lips as he looked at the ferocious beast. What did you say? The moment the heaven-devouring beast heard this, it could not believe its ears. To think that this fella would want to eat it up. Had he gone mad? Your daddy here is a heaven-devouring beast. I've always been the one eating others. No one can eat me. There's no point in talking anymore. Kill. Jiyu Fei did not want to waste his breath on this fella any longer. Waving his right hand, a bedazzling sword light burst forth from his hand and slashed out at the heaven-devouring beast. That extremely sharp sword light tore through the void and arrived above the head of the heaven-devouring beast in the blink of an eye. Phew! The next moment, the beast disappeared from the void and snatched that sword light from Jiyu Fei. By the time it appeared once more, it was already right before Jiyu Fei's face. Using its sharp claws, it swiped out at Jiyu Fei's head. Chapter 30-36. The heaven-devouring beast was definitely a ferocious beast that could cause even the heavens and earth to tremble in its presence. This sort of ferocious beast could be said to be renowned throughout the ancient era of the heavenly world and the mortal world. During the dark era of the late primordial era, the figure of a heaven-devouring beast had once appeared. There were even people who witnessed a heaven-devouring beast devouring an entire starry sky. Of course, the heaven-devouring beast that was fighting against Jiyu Fei wasn't that strong to be able to devour an entire starry sky. However, that heaven-devouring beast was still a quasi-utmost being. In the heavenly world and the mortal world, the heaven-devouring beast had already gone extinct. But Jiyu Fei had not expected to encounter a legendary heaven-devouring beast here. One had to know that the heaven-devouring beast was one of the 10 great ancient beasts. At this moment, Jiyu Fei grabbed hold of one of the sharp claws of the heaven-devouring beast and swung the beast around fiercely before smashing it down onto the ground. Boom! The heaven-devouring beast descended from the sky like a meteor, smashing down into the depths of the ground. Instantly, the surface of the ground rippled like waves. What heaven-devouring ruler? Just SOSO. Jiyu Fei stood high up in the sky and looked down at the ground that was filled with dust. A tremendous might spread out from his body, causing the void around him to tremble. Roar! From the depths of the ground, a furious roar rang out, causing the entire ground to tremble as a supreme power spread out. If not for the fact that this spiritual ground was protected by the power of seals, it would have long been destroyed. Swoosh! A figure bolted up into the sky from the ground and pounced out at Jiyu Fei. Above that figure, a terrifying devouring power burst forth, as though it had turned into a horrifying black hole that wanted to devour Jiyu Fei whole. Haha! How can your daddy be devoured by you? Jiyu Fei roared out in laughter as he punched out at that figure. A berserk power burst forth from his fist. This was the power of a quasi-utmost being, causing the void to collapse with a single punch. The devouring power emanating from the heaven-devouring beast could not affect Jiyu Fei at all. Jiyu Fei was like the reincarnation of a peerless god of war. His fist tore through the void, and a chaotic fist broke through the layers of devouring power that were emanating from the body of the heaven-devouring beast. His fist landed on the heaven-devouring beast's body. What? The heaven-devouring beast was extremely shocked. When the other party's fist landed on its body, it felt as though it had been struck by a chaos divine mountain. It was sent flying, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard from its body. How is this possible? The heaven-devouring beast was in disbelief. To think that this human sovereign was this strong. How could this be? This ferocious beast was a creature from the deserted world, not a prospective supreme being from the heaven realm or the human realm. To this ferocious beast, the human race was synonymous with weakness. Of course, the heaven-swallowing beast had also heard that powerful humans from other realms had crossed over to conquer many of the Paragons' territories. Some of the Paragons had even been slain by the humans. However, the heaven-devouring beast did not care about any of this. The Paragons that had been slain by the humans had all been weak, and it was definitely stronger than those Paragons. This was the confidence of the heaven-devouring beast. Of course, it definitely had the right to be so confident. But now, the heaven-devouring beast realized that the humans really were strong. They were so strong that it was hard to imagine that they could actually injure it with a single punch. Damn it. The heaven-devouring beast was sent flying tens of thousands of jong away by Ji Yufei's punch before it managed to stabilize itself. Its body shone with the divine light of the immortal Tao, and the broken bones in its body rapidly reconnected and regenerated. Soon, the heaven-devouring beast's injured body was completely healed. At this level of cultivation, the physical body was almost indestructible. No matter how heavy the injury was, the body could be healed in an instant and be completely healed. The lofty heaven-devouring beast had finally met its match today. The heaven-devouring beast grinned savagely, and the terrifying fluctuations of a quasi-supreme emanated from its body. Rays of divine light transformed into divine chains that danced around its body, emitting sonorous clangs. Immortal runes flickered faintly on the divine chains. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The stable space around the heaven-devouring beast trembled. The energy fluctuations that erupted from its body were too powerful, far beyond that of an ordinary quasi-supreme. Now this is interesting. If you couldn't even take a single punch from me, it would be too boring. Seeing that the heaven-devouring beast was going all out, Ji Yufei finally got serious. A shocking fighting spirit emanated from his body, and the runes of the Tao of primal chaos appeared on his body. I'm going to devour you. The heaven-devouring beast roared, and terrifying devouring power once again emanated from its body. It was like a powerful black hole that devoured everything around it. The void around its body was crumbling and being destroyed, turning into the most primordial essence energy that was devoured by the heaven-devouring beast. The heaven-devouring beast was no ordinary ferocious beast. It was a ferocious beast that could devour the heavens. It could devour everything, and this beast had devoured countless lives. However, no matter how strong the devouring power of the heaven-devouring beast was, Ji Yufei remained unmoved like a mountain this time. No matter how the heaven-devouring beast used the heaven-gorging mysterious art, it couldn't move Ji Yufei at all. Clang! The divine chains around the heaven-devouring beast shot towards Ji Yufei. Every single one of the divine chains contained the power of a quasi-supreme. The 9 divine chains pierced through the void and wrapped around Ji Yufei instantly. Ji Yufei didn't resist, allowing the divine chains to wrap around him. The 9 divine chains exerted force at the same time, straightening out in an attempt to pull Ji Yufei over. However, a scene that left the heaven-devouring beast in disbelief appeared. The 9 divine chains couldn't move Ji Yufei at all. In fact, the divine chains even emitted terrifying flames of the immortal Tao, yet they still couldn't hurt Ji Yufei at all. Ji Yufei's body shuddered, and the 9 divine chains that wrapped around him broke apart instantly. They then turned into immortal light and dissipated into the void. Ji Yufei then stretched out his right hand and pressed forward. A gigantic hand of chaos immediately appeared in the void and slammed towards the heaven-devouring beast. The gigantic hand of chaos destroyed everything and imprinted itself on the heaven-devouring beast's body. This time around, the heaven-devouring beast was torn apart by the gigantic hand of chaos, its physical body disintegrating in the void. However, the heaven-devouring beast quickly reassembled its physical body. Such an attack couldn't do anything to it at all, and it couldn't hurt its vitality at all. However, a beam of chaotic divine light suddenly shot out from Ji Yufei's glabella. That beam of chaotic divine light instantly turned into an extremely sharp chaotic sword light that slashed towards the heaven-devouring beast. Chapter 30-37. Jiyu Fei was extremely domineering. He used his Yuan spirit sword of Wei right away and beheaded the heaven-devouring beast with a single slash. This time around, the heaven-devouring beast felt its life being threatened. The power of the great Tao had invaded its body and injured its Yuan spirit. The heaven-devouring beast's head exploded, turning into a bloody mist. Within the bloody mist, a figure wrapped in divine light soared into the sky, attempting to escape. The heaven-devouring beast's headless corpse fell from the sky and smashed into the ground, causing the ground to tremble and dust to rise into the air. This was the first time Jiyu Fei had fought after becoming a quasi-supreme. Even he had not expected his cultivation base to have reached such a level. Seeing that the heaven-devouring beast's Yuan spirit was trying to escape, Jiyu Fei extended his hand and grabbed the divine light that soared into the sky. Don't kill me." Even the heaven-devouring beast had not expected it to lose so quickly and so thoroughly. This human ruler was simply as terrifying as a supreme. The heaven-devouring beast panicked. Only at this moment did it realize that it had kicked an iron plate this time around. "I've already said that I'm going to cook you and turn you into a pot of nourishing soup," Jiyu Fei said. Then, he did not give the heaven-devouring beast any chance at all. He grabbed the heaven-devouring beast's Yuan spirit and crushed it. A resplendent Yuan spirit light exploded before disappearing into the void after emitting the most beautiful light like a firework. The heaven-devouring beast was very indignant, but there was nothing it could do. It had provoked someone it shouldn't have, who had actually dared to come and take over Jiyu Fei's territory. As such, it had only itself to blame for being killed. However, a heaven-devouring beast that was even stronger than a quasi-supreme had died just like that. Once the news spread, the entire desolate world would be shaken. Jiyu Fei then waved his hand, and the headless corpse of the fallen beast flew up from the ground. He stored it away. He was going to eat this heaven-devouring beast. This time, it was retribution. The heaven-devouring beast had devoured countless living beings and grown into a near-invincible existence in the desolate world. But in the end, it ended up being eaten by someone else. This piece of immortal spiritual land was almost destroyed by the battle between Jiyu Fei and the heaven-devouring beast. He immediately opened up his inner world and let the people of the Meng clan out to clean up the spiritual land. He himself entered the depths of the spiritual land and took out a huge cauldron. He then poured half a cauldron of water from the divine spring of life into it. The water from the divine spring of life contained a tremendous amount of life. Just a single drop could bring a dead person back to life. One's eyes would turn red from the water from the heaven-devouring life. Jiyu Fei plucked some spiritual herbs from his inner world and threw them into the cauldron. Then, he took out the corpse of the heaven-devouring beast. True saint, he took it, and spirit Tao, and spirit to the heaven-devouring beast. Qi, spirit, Qi, intent, spirit, Yang, devoured, emperor, spirit, and, Yang spirit beast, one, spirit. This was a sword of the extreme path. No matter how hard the skin of the heaven-devouring beast was, it could not withstand the blade of the purple-gold divine sword. Jiyu Fei wielded his sword like the wind. Soon, the skin of the heaven-devouring beast had been completely cut off. This piece of skin was definitely a treasure. It could be refined into a treasured armor that could withstand the attacks of divine implements. He put away the skin of the heaven-devouring beast and tossed the flesh and bones of the heaven-devouring beast into the cauldron. Only then did he draw out a stream of flames of the way to cook the heaven-devouring beast. Soon, the spiritual herbs in the cauldron gradually melted. A medicinal aroma wafted out of the cauldron, making one feel refreshed when they smelled it. Although the spiritual herbs in the cauldron had melted, the essence contained in the heaven-devouring beast's flesh and blood had not been extracted. It was important to know that the heaven-devouring beast was a quasi-supreme ruler. Time passed by. Jiyu Fei continued to cook this cauldron of nourishing soup for 9 days and 9 nights. Only then did he use the flames of the way to boil the essence contained in the heaven-devouring beast's flesh and bones and fuse it into the soup. The entire cauldron emitted a mighty aura of the Great Path. It seemed as if the cauldron was nurturing a powerful force of the Great Path. This large cauldron of nourishing soup was definitely comparable to a cauldron of peerless great medicines. This kind of nourishing soup could increase the cultivation of saint-level beings. Even quasi-supreme beings would receive great benefits after eating the nourishing soup in the cauldron. The cauldron of nourishing soup was finally done. Gu Fei put away the flames of the way and sent a message talisman to the old turtle. The old turtle arrived not long after. The great ancestor of the demon race, who was also the old turtle's uncle, came with him. Apart from them, the Iron Blood Daoist and the 3 spirits of the immortal path were also there. The old turtle brought them to Gu Fei's territory and directly entered the depths of the land of immortal spirits. Haha, brother, you're really something. You actually killed a heaven-devouring beast. I can't help but admire you. As soon as the old turtle saw Gu Fei, he laughed and hugged Gu Fei. His gaze was then attracted by the cauldron at the side. What a pure essence. The old tortoise couldn't help but be moved. The cauldron of great medicine that Gu Fei had brewed was truly incredible. The divine spring of life, the flesh and bones of a quasi-supreme heaven-devouring beast, and several rare spirit herbs were enough to make any cultivator's eyes go red. Come, come, come. I'll treat you to a feast before you undergo your tribulation. Gu Fei pulled the old turtle to sit in front of the cauldron. He took out a few big bowls and personally filled them with soup that had been cooked for 9 days and 9 nights. He then handed them to the great ancestor of the demon race. Thank you, little friend. Thanks to you, we actually managed to eat a legendary heaven-devouring beast. The great ancestor accepted the bowl of soup from Gu Fei and said excitedly, "One should know that a heaven-devouring beast was one of the 10 great savage beasts of ancient times. No one had ever been able to boil a heaven-devouring beast into a cauldron of soup." "You're too kind, senior," Gu Fei said. At this time, old tortoise could not wait to fill a big bowl of soup and gulp it down. Soon, the big bowl of soup was empty. Haha, not bad. This is the most delicious soup I've ever tasted. As the old turtle spoke, spirit light came out of his mouth and nose. An extremely powerful spirit essence spread out from his body and his whole body was glowing. You guys should drink some too, Gu Fei told the Iron Blood Daoist and the 3 immortal spirits. Even the Dragon Horn Chileen and the Fire Chileen had a share. They could drink a bowl of soup made from the heaven-devouring beast's flesh and bones. The Iron Blood Daoist and the others were already swallowing their saliva. They were both surprised and overjoyed to hear Gu Fei's words. The aroma wafting out of the cauldron had already made everyone's appetite whet. Moreover, eating this kind of old soup would be of help to everyone's cultivation. Chapter 3038. Gu Fei cooked the heaven-devouring beast's corpse into a cauldron of soup and invited Old Tortoise and the others to have a taste of the top-grade soup. To be precise, the cauldron of soup was actually a cauldron of great medicine. After all, that heaven-devouring beast was a quasi-supreme level heaven-devouring beast. In the desolate world, that heaven-devouring beast had a resounding name, the heaven-devouring ruler. The heaven-devouring ruler was definitely not some unknown figure in the desolate world. On the contrary, that heaven-devouring beast was one of the few experts among the rulers of the entire desolate world. It had once devoured another ruler of the desolate world in one gulp. Such a ferocious beast had been cooked into a cauldron of great medicine. If news of this were to spread, it would definitely shake the entire cultivation world of the desolate world. At that moment, the essence contained within the heaven-devouring beast's flesh and bones had been cooked by Gu Fei using the flames of the way. The aroma of meat and medicine spread out from the cauldron, whetting everyone's appetite. Old Tortoise reached into the cauldron and tore off a large piece of beast meat. Then, he ate it. Although the beast meat had been cooked for 9 days and 9 nights, its texture was still very chewy. At that moment, the others started eating as well. This was also the first time they had eaten a heaven-devouring beast. It should be noted that heaven-devouring beasts had already gone extinct in both the heaven realm and the human realm. Only in the desolate world had a heaven-devouring ruler. That fellow was a ruler. Only it would eat people. No one would dare to eat it. Unfortunately, that heaven-devouring beast provoked Ji Fei. As a result, the so-called heaven-devouring ruler met a tragic end. It was killed by Ji Fei and boiled into a cauldron of soup. This cauldron of soup was definitely rarer than the average great medicine. Since ancient times, no one had ever heard of anyone eating a heaven-devouring beast. Haha, not bad. It's been many years since I've eaten something so delicious, Old Tortoise said with a laugh. The large piece of heaven-devouring beast meat in his hand had been completely devoured by him. Spiritual light flickered between his nostrils and mouth. This is the first time I've eaten a heaven-devouring beast. The soup and the meat are definitely the best things this old man has ever eaten. The old master of the demon race gulped down the thick soup in a single gulp before lamenting. He had seen a lot of things and was of the same generation as the Thai sovereign. However, he had never eaten one of the 10 great beasts before. One had to know that every single one of the 10 great ancient ferocious beasts were pitilessly powerful existences. Any one of them could contend against the old ancestor of the demon race back then. The sky-devouring beast in the desolate world had not grown to the level of the 10 ferocious beasts of the past. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy for Ji Fei to kill it. Ji Fei also began to eat. "Brother, why don't you save some meat to roast?" At this time, Old Tortoise tore a large piece of beast meat from the cauldron and stuffed it directly into his mouth. "That's true. I forgot that you like to roast," Ji Fei said. "It should taste pretty good if we roast it." Old Tortoise said, "Little brat, you don't know how to eat. If we roast it, it would be a waste of the sky-devouring beast meat." The old ancestor of the demon race shook his head. Only by putting the flesh of the sky-devouring beast into the cauldron to ensure that the essence of the flesh would not be lost. Old Tortoise glanced at the old ancestor of the demon race and said no more. At this time, the dragon horn Chelin and the others had no right to speak. They only ate a bowl of soup from the cauldron and did not dare to drink any more. They directly went to another area to refine the medicinal power. The dragon horn Chelin beast's body shone with spirit light, and a powerful essence energy spread out from its body. The Iron Blood Daoist was a saint emperor, but after eating a bowl of soup made from the flesh of the sky-devouring beast, his body was also on fire. The blood in his body became extremely vigorous and his cultivation showed signs of breaking through. The fire Chelin Bullon also showed signs of triggering a divine tribulation. This was all good news. Ji Fei waved his hand and sent the Iron Blood Daoist and the fire Chelin Bullon to the mountains thousands of miles away. These two little guys have good potential. The old ancestor of the demon race nodded. "Brother, your two subordinates seem to have a promising future. My uncle rarely praises people," Old Tortoise said. "How far they can go still depends on their own fate." Ji Fei sighed. Sometimes, one's constitution and potential were not sufficient to prove anything. External factors could often determine a cultivator's future. For example, being killed before they grew up, or being crippled, and so on. These things were all possible. Especially now that the world was in chaos. Countless cultivators kept jumping out. The entire world of cultivation, be it the heaven realm or the human realm, was already showing signs of chaos. Ever since the cultivators of the human race crossed over, they also broke the peace of the wasteland world. Wars broke out everywhere, and even the supreme rulers of the wasteland world had fallen. "You're right." The old ancestor of the demon race could not help but nod. To him, although the old tortoise had lived for a long time, he was still not as good as Ji Fei. There was a reason for that. There were some things that Ji Fei saw more clearly than the old tortoise. It had to be said that cooking the flesh and bones of a sky-devouring beast at the quasi-supreme level into a cauldron of great medicine was truly heaven-defying. Even a quasi-supreme like Ji Fei would have a vast amount of essence qi after eating too much of it. He would have to use his mystic arts to refine the huge amount of essence qi produced from the flesh and blood of the sky-devouring beast. Not everyone could withstand such a huge amount of essence qi. Even saint-level beings could only drink a bowl of this nourishing soup. For beings below saint level, a single drop would cause their bodies to explode and they would die instantly. Intentionally or unintentionally, Gu Fei spread the news. Soon, all the paragons of the wasteland world knew that the Sky Devourer had fallen, and that it had been eaten by a human. Is it possible that the Sky Devourer was eaten by a human? A paragon of the wasteland world said. Whether or not it's possible, the Sky Devourer has fallen. That is an indisputable fact. A paragon of the wasteland world said this. Not all paragons of the wasteland world were at odds with the human race. Some paragons even had dealings with human quasi-supreme beings. They did not become mortal enemies. Some paragons received the news that the Sky Devourer had fallen. The Sky Devourer was not a nobody in the wasteland world. He was one of the strongest beings in the wasteland world. Few could rival him, and he had even devoured other paragons in the past. The fall of such a powerful beast shocked all the paragons of the wasteland world. Their opinions of the human race began to change. The human race's situation began to improve, and the other experts of the wasteland world no longer dared to underestimate them. Chapter 3039. After this battle, the human race could finally break away from the fate of being the weak. They were no longer looked down upon by the major races of the desolate world and no longer dared to treat the human race as slaves. Gu Fei had undoubtedly become the savior of the human race in the desolate world. This was something that even Gu Fei himself could not have imagined. At this time, Gu Fei, the old turtle, and the others were still enjoying their feast. They had eaten more than half of the cauldron of sky-devouring beast soup. The old ancestor left in satisfaction, but the old tortoise stayed behind to discuss the Tao with Gu Fei. After eating the soup, the old turtle's blood became even stronger. Demonic patterns emerged and intertwined on his body, exuding an extremely powerful aura. Gu Fei was a quasi-supreme being, so the old turtle's discussion with Gu Fei was greatly beneficial. 3 days later, the old turtle left because he was about to undergo the divine tribulation. Finally, it's time. Even if he is not 100% sure, he is at least 80% sure. Gu Fei muttered to himself. He also had to prepare. If he did not go to the old turtle's divine tribulation, it would not be right. At this time, the Iron Blood Cultivator and the Fire Chiline Bullon had already triggered the divine tribulation. The clouds of the divine tribulation shrouded half the world and the aura of destruction filled the air. On a mountain in the distance, Gu Fei stood at the summit. Looking at the 2 clouds of the divine tribulation that were gathering, he could not help but frown. What should I do? Gu Fei was in a dilemma. If he left and someone came to make trouble while the 2 were undergoing the divine tribulation, the consequences would be unthinkable. After some thought, a figure walked out of his body. This was his second avatar, also an avatar of the immortal path. It had the cultivation of a holy venerate. Clang! With the sound of a sword, a beam of sword light rushed out of his body and turned into a purple-gold sword, floating in front of him. Gu Fei's avatar reached out and grabbed the sword, then sat down on the summit. Whoosh! Gu Fei's real body then soared into the sky and disappeared into the void. Several hours later, a divine island emerged from the spiritual land of 5 elements and entered the starry sky of the desolate world. The divine island did not stop and went deep into the starry sky. Undergoing the heavenly tribulation in the desolate world would cause great damage to the land. There was no doubt that the heavenly tribulation of a quasi-supreme being would destroy an entire region. Entering the depths of the starry sky to undergo the tribulation could minimize the damage that the quasi-supreme heavenly tribulation would inflict on this part of the world. In fact, most of the powerful beings in the deserted world chose to undergo their tribulations in the depths of the starry sky of the deserted world when they wanted to make a breakthrough. Deity Island was moving quickly in space. Many large planets were moving behind Deity Island. Wherever Deity Island passed, there were no planets with life. That is, just at this moment, a void without a single star appeared in front of the island. Within this void, there was a destructive aura. This destructive aura wasn't strong, but it was enough to make one's heart tremble. It's the aura of a heavenly tribulation. It seems that someone once underwent their tribulation here. One of the demon folk old-timers frowned. This void without stars was incomparably vast. Even they couldn't see the end of it with their eyes. Furthermore, there was a lot of rubble and dust floating in the air. If their guesses were correct, those rubble and dust were formed by the shattering of stars. The demonic light of the great Tao enveloped the divine island as it charged into the silent void. The island sped forward, covering thousands of miles in an instant. But even with such speed, it took a while to reach the center of the void. That is, at this moment, everyone on the island was shocked. In front of them, there was an incomparably huge corpse. An unimaginably strong chi was emitting from the corpse. It was the corpse of a beast shaped like a flood dragon, but with the head of a ferocious crocodile. That's a crocadragon of antiquity. One of the demon-folk old-timers recognized the corpse of a fierce beast that was countless times larger than a planet. Around the giant corpse, there were actually many large stars, but there were even more fragments and dust. Everything revolved around this figure. As they approached the divine island, they saw a shocking scene. There was a large hole in the head of the crocadragon. It was as if something had rushed out of the crocadragon's head. It failed to pass the tribulation and died here. The figure of the old ancestor of the monster race appeared. He stared at the crocadragon and said such words. When the group of demon race old ancestors heard the old ancestor's words, they were indescribably shocked. The heavenly tribulation aura that this huge crocadragon emitted was very strong. Old man, do you think this crocadragon died when it was about to take the final step? Jiu Fei appeared next to the old man. Isn't that obvious? The old man said. The crocadragon was extremely strong. It was the ruler of the desolate world, but it was killed by the heavens tribulation when it was about to take the final step. I've never tasted the meat of a crocadragon. Jiu Fei couldn't help but lick his lips when he saw the massive savage beast before him. His eyes even lit up. Don't even think about it. The essence of this crocadragon has been destroyed by the heavens tribulation. It's worthless. The old man shook his head. What a pity. Jiu Fei really wanted to taste the crocadragon's meat. But after hearing the old man's words, he gave up on the idea. It was not worth his time to eat something worthless. When some of the old ancestors of the demon race heard Jiu Fei's words, they were shocked to the extreme. This guy was too ferocious. He actually wanted to eat the crocadragon. I heard that this guy ate a heaven-devouring beast. A demonic ancestor said in a low voice. These demonic ancestors did not dare to get too close to Jiu Fei. One should know that this guy was a super glutton. If they were to accidentally anger this guy, they would be eaten by him. At this time, Deity Island went around the crocadragon in the void and continued to rush forward. Soon, the divine island left the range of the crocadragon's tribulation. The experts were shocked. The range of the crocadragon's tribulation was too big. The heavens tribulation covered an area of tens of thousands of miles. From this, one could imagine how shocking the crocadragon's tribulation was. Not succeeding in the final leap and falling to the state of death, this scene was horrifying, and it caused Jiu Fei to feel extremely shocked. No wonder only a small number of people have been able to become exalted figures since ancient times until now. Chapter 30-40. The creatures of the deserted world had also tried. Some of them were qualified to take that step, but they had never succeeded. The carcass of the crocadragon had been lying in the starry sky for tens of thousands of years. Its spiritual energy had been dispersed by the heavenly tribulation, but the unique aura of destruction of the heavenly tribulation still emanated from its body. That aura of the heavenly tribulation, despite the passing of countless years, was still condensed and could deter beings of the demi-supreme level. The failure of the crocadragon to overcome the heavenly tribulation shocked Jiu Fei and the great ancestor of the demon race. The crocadragon was so powerful that its cultivation and combat ability were definitely above theirs. However, in the face of the heavenly tribulation, such a powerful being still died. Not even its primordial spirit could escape. Although they were far away from the place where the crocadragon went through the heavenly tribulation, Jiu Fei still found it difficult to calm down because he knew that he, too, had to take that ultimate step in the future. One didn't even need to think to know how difficult and dangerous it was to take that final step. Since ancient times, countless living beings had wanted to take that step, but there weren't many who had actually succeeded. Moreover, after taking that step, there was no turning back. Many beings had fallen to the heavenly tribulation in this way and perished. Jiyu Fei was silent, as was the great ancestor of the demon race. Even the old tortoise did not speak. His expression was extremely solemn. His father, Tai Huang, had once succeeded. This was a living example of success. The world was heartless, but there was still a chance of survival. Countless cultivators fought for that chance, but most of them failed. I must succeed. Jiyu Fei's eyes became determined. Although he was momentarily confused and helpless, none of this could wear down his will. This young man is definitely not an ordinary person. The great ancestor of the demon race noticed the change in Jiyu Fei and could not help but be moved. When the old tortoise saw the dead body of the crocodragon, he was also greatly moved. However, he adjusted his mentality in time. What father can do, I can do as well. The old tortoise shouted in his mind. Of course, not everyone had an unwavering Taoist heart like Jiyu Fei and old tortoise. Even some of the demon clan's sovereigns were affected. The starry sky was endless. No one knew how vast the universe was. Several hours later, the divine island finally stopped. They had entered a primitive ancient star region. The primitive ancient star region was a star region that had existed since the formation of the desolate world. It was extremely ancient. This star region was usually located at the edge of the universe. The star field that evolved at the beginning of the world was incomparably stable. The distance between the stars was very far, but the power of the stars was far greater than that of ordinary stars. The star regions that evolved at the beginning were extremely stable. The distance between the stars were very far. The stars of the stars were far more powerful than ordinary stars of the stars of the world. The stars in ancient star region had existed for far too many years. The old turtle said. They were already far away from the deserted world and had entered the primordial star region. Even if someone wanted to track them, they would have been long gone. This is a good place. Jiyu Fei couldn't help but nod when he sensed the primal energy of the world outside the divine island. Undergoing tribulation here could draw on the primal energy of the world to refine the body. Of course, this was Jiyu Fei's method of overcoming the heavenly tribulation. The old tortoise's method might be different. After all, not everyone dared to use the power of the heavenly tribulation to temper their bodies. Shua. The old tortoise no longer hesitated. He took a step forward and instantly disappeared into the void. The next moment, he reappeared thousands of miles away. This distance was still not far enough. His figure flashed continuously in the primordial starry sky. Soon, he rushed into the depths of the primordial starry sky. The ancestral beasts naturally wouldn't follow them. They all stayed on the island. Some ancestral beasts climbed to the peak of the island while others stood in the sky and gazed into the depths of the primordial starry sky. Only Jiyu Fei took a step forward and rushed out of the divine island. He entered the depths of the primordial starry sky and landed on a star tens of thousands of miles away from the old turtle. Then, he sat down cross-legged. Buzz. After Jiyu Fei sat down, a rumbling sound came from his body. An ancient cauldron the size of a fist rose from his head and floated above his head. Is that the mountain and river cauldron? An obscure but powerful aura radiated from the ancient cauldron above Jiyu Fei's head. Even on the divine island tens of thousands of kilometers away, the experts of the Yarrow race could feel a great pressure. It was as if a mountain was pressing down on their hearts. That's definitely the mountain and river cauldron. One cauldron to suppress the mountains and rivers. I didn't expect him to bring this extreme divine cauldron with him. Some ancestral beasts exclaimed. However, to their astonishment, another extreme divine weapon flew out from Jiyu Fei's body. It was a black saber, a seemingly ordinary black saber. However, it was this ordinary black saber that exuded a peerless and ferocious aura. This shocked the ancestral beasts to the extreme. Peerless saber. Some ancestral beasts exclaimed. The ferocious aura exuded from the black saber made their souls tremble. It was as if the black saber could reap their lives at any time. A peerless dragon was refined into a saber. Sigh. The ancestral beasts looked at the black saber floating above Jiyu Fei's head and sighed with a complicated expression. The ancestral beasts of the ancestral beasts were the Tai Huang, but the azure dragon was also an ancestral dragon born from the heaven and earth. It was extremely powerful, and once it was born, it could swallow clouds and spit out mist. It hunted immortals and demons for food. In the distant past, this primordial ferocious dragon was practically unstoppable. The number of living beings that were devoured by it was innumerable, and in the end, it alarmed a supreme existence. That existence slew this peerless ferocious dragon, then refined its flesh into a peerless divine weapon, the azure dragon blade. The original name of this peerless saber was the azure dragon saber. At this time, the cauldron of mountain and river and the peerless saber appeared above Jiyu Fei's head at the same time. This shocked countless ancestral beasts on the divine island tens of thousands of miles away. This human was incredible. He was blessed with great fortune. Otherwise, how could he have obtained two divine weapons of the highest path? The old ancestors of the monster race looked at the figure on the distant star in a different light. No one dared to look down on Jiyu Fei anymore. Jiyu Fei originally had a divine weapon of the highest path, but he left the purple-gold divine sword in the immortal land of the desolate world. He used his incarnation to wield the sword to protect the Iron-Blood Taoist and the Fire Chelin Balon. Both the Iron-Blood Daoist and the Fire Chelin wanted to watch the old tortoise go through the heavenly tribulation, but things were unpredictable. Even they did not expect that after drinking a bowl of soup made from the flesh of a heaven-devouring beast, their cultivation would show signs of breaking through. Therefore, Jiyu Fei could only bring the three spirits and the dragon horn Chelin to watch the tortoise's tribulation. At this time, the three spirits and the dragon horn Chelin were in the sky above the first immortal pavilion, staring at the figure in the primordial starry sky tens of thousands of miles away. With their level of cultivation, they could clearly see the tortoise's figure from tens of thousands of miles away. In fact, even if they could not see it, they could still sense the tortoise's existence. Rumble. A destructive force appeared in the primordial starry sky. Faint sounds of thunder could be heard from the depths of the starry sky. This destructive breath made everyone on the divine island extremely nervous. It's finally starting. The ancestral beasts muttered to himself. Then, he took a step forward and disappeared into the void. No one knew where he went. No one could see how he disappeared. However, everyone knew that the ancestral beasts must have been protecting the tortoise in secret. On the surface, Jiyu Fei was protecting the tortoise with two great divine weapons of the Great Path, while the ancestral beasts were protecting the tortoise in secret. It could be said that no one in this world, the heavenly realm, or the human world could touch the tortoise. Of course, unless it was the Renhuang himself. However, there was only one Renhuang Jiang in the current world, and he would never attack the tortoise. Whether it was the heavenly demons or the demons, among the forces that wanted to get rid of the tortoise, there was no invincible expert who could be mentioned in the same breath as Renhuang Jiang. At this time, in the depths of the primordial starry sky, an incomparably huge tribulation cloud was forming rapidly. The endless tribulation cloud shrouded almost half of the starry sky. Dazzling bolts of lightning flashed continuously in the tribulation cloud. The destructive force was condensing into bolts of lightning that wreaked havoc and tore the void apart. Under the tribulation cloud, the tortoise seemed very small. It was as if a bolt of lightning from the tribulation cloud could blast him into ashes. Boom! Amidst the earth-shattering sound of thunder, an extremely dazzling bolt of lightning directly bombarded down from the tribulation cloud. The entire starry sky trembled in the sound of thunder. The heavens' tribulation was launched much faster than what everyone had expected, which shocked everyone. Under the tribulation cloud, the tortoise directly punched out. A powerful force directly erupted from his fist, and with one punch, the tribulation lightning that bombarded down from the tribulation cloud was dispersed. Since when did this guy become so ferocious? Tens of thousands of miles away in the starry sky, Jiyu Fei, who was sitting cross-legged on a star, could not help but be stunned when he saw this scene. Was this guy actually fighting against the heavens' tribulation with his physical body? Ha ha! This level of heavens' tribulation is too weak. The tortoise stared at the tribulation cloud in the sky and laughed. An unimaginably powerful aura spread from his body, and the powerful pressure impacted the surrounding void and caused the surrounding void to tremble. Chapter 3041. The old tortoise had eaten the tonic soup that Jiu Fei had brewed with the flesh, blood, and bones of the heaven-devouring beast, and his body had been tempered to become even stronger. At this time, the advantage of his body was reflected. A terrifying heavenly thunder that seemed to be able to destroy everything in the world was smashed by the old turtle with a single punch from the tribulation cloud. In the starry sky hundreds of thousands of miles away, the demon experts on the divine island were shocked to see this scene. Although the demon race's physical bodies were strong, there were not many who dared to fight against the lightning bolts with their bodies. Rumble, an even more terrifying aura of destruction came down from the clouds in the sky. However, the old turtle's fighting spirit under the clouds had also become stronger. Half of the primitive star area was covered by the tribulation clouds. The clouds were still expanding, covering the stars one by one. Lightning kept flashing in the clouds and bombarding those stars from time to time. Old Tortoise realized that the stars that were struck by the lightning in the tribulation cloud did not explode. Instead, the lightning, which exuded a terrifying aura of destruction, only caused the stars to tremble. The stars in the primordial star area are indeed extraordinary. The old turtle was moved. The heavens test he had triggered was that of a quasi-supreme master. The power of the heavens test was extremely terrifying. If he were to undergo the heavens test on the desolate world, the entire region would be destroyed and countless creatures would suffer. However, there were no living creatures in the primordial star area. Whoosh! At that moment, another bolt of lightning the size of a mountain descended from the sky and struck the old tortoise. This time, the tortoise did not resist the lightning and allowed it to strike its body. In an instant, the old turtle disappeared from everyone's sight. He was swallowed by the lightning. The place where he was standing had turned into a huge ball of lightning. Why is this guy still playing at a time like this? Jiu Fei, who was sitting on a star tens of thousands of miles away, shook his head when he saw this. The old turtle was too playful. He was still playing when he was undergoing the heavens test. Ha ha, the old tortoise's laughter came from the ball of thunder. It was filled with a destructive aura. Countless lightning bolts intertwined on the ball of thunder, and each bolt of lightning tore through the void. In the center of the thunderball, a figure was faintly discernible. He was actually swallowing and spitting out electricity. The physique of the thunderball was gradually shrinking as it was refined by the old tortoise into his body. Old Tortoise was a descendant of the Supreme Emperor and had mastered the great technique created by the Supreme Emperor. To a certain extent, the power condensed by the heavenly tribulation could also be absorbed and refined by cultivators. This guy, Jiu Fei, couldn't help but be moved after sensing the old tortoise's aura. The old tortoise had actually used the calamity-warding heavenly art, which was one of the great arts created by the Supreme Sovereign. The calamity nullification skill could refine the power of heavenly tribulation into one's own power. The old tortoise seemed to have turned into a bottomless black hole, constantly swallowing and spitting lightning. Streaks of tribulation lightning continued to converge toward Old Tortoise before disappearing into his body. The speed at which the old tortoise refined the power of the tribulation thunder was very slow at first, but it gradually sped up. Later on, the power of the tribulation thunder in the surroundings frantically gathered towards the old tortoise. The old monsters on the divine island were indescribably shocked at this scene. The old tortoise's method was too astonishing. Could that be? A monster ancestor suddenly thought of something and became excited. He's cultivated the legendary heavenly art. An old ancestor said with a trembling voice, having noticed something. The calamity nullification skill is indeed wondrous. Even Jiu Fei couldn't help but be moved. The great art created by the Supreme Sovereign was not inferior to the 9 secrets of immortal Tao that Jiu Fei had obtained. Of course, no one knew which was stronger between the two. Supreme arts each had their own terrifying power. Once used, they would definitely have the power to destroy the world. Rumble, the heavenly tribulation spun and tribulation clouds descended from the sky. Terrifying tribulation lightning continuously bombarded the old tortoise from the sky. The destructive power grew stronger and stronger. The endless tribulation lightning once again drowned the old tortoise in destructive lightning. However, the old tortoise simply sat cross-legged in the void and continued to use the calamity nullification art to refine the power of the tribulation into essence and devour it into his own. The stronger the heavenly tribulation, the more essence the old tortoise refined, and the stronger his aura became. This was the power of the calamity nullification art. It could refine the terrifying power of the heavenly tribulation into one's own power and use this method to improve one's cultivation. This heavenly art created by the Supreme Sovereign was too heaven-defying. One had to know that when one transcended the heavenly tribulation, one's cultivation and combat ability would be greatly improved. Those who cultivated the calamity nullification art would not fight against the heavenly tribulation like ordinary people. Even if they survived, they would often be heavily injured and on the verge of death. Even if they weren't, their vitality would be greatly damaged. However, the old tortoise was going through a quasi-supreme tribulation after all. No one knew if the calamity nullification art could also nullify a quasi-supreme tribulation. However, judging from the old tortoise's current state, he was not in any danger. He was still using the calamity nullification art to nullify the power of the heavenly tribulation. His vitality was gradually becoming stronger. Judging from the current situation, not only did the power of the heavenly tribulation not injure the old tortoise, but it was also continuously providing vitality to him. This was something that no one expected. Even the eyes of the demon race's great ancestor lit up when he saw this. The calamity nullification art, the demon race's great ancestor muttered to himself. He could not master this heavenly art because it was the Supreme Sovereign's inheritance. The heavenly art was hidden in the old tortoise's bloodline. When his cultivation reached a certain level, the heavenly art would automatically appear in his mind. This was the inheritance of bloodline. In fact, it was not only the Supreme Sovereign who could use this method to pass down the great arts he created to his descendants. Those extremely powerful divine beasts and divine birds could pass down the great arts they created to their descendants in this way. This little guy, he actually mastered the calamity nullification art and he didn't tell me. I'll spank him. The demon race's great ancestor said fiercely. At this time, the old tortoise's situation gradually changed. The power of the heavenly tribulation coming from the tribulation clouds was getting stronger and stronger. His calamity nullification art was also finding it difficult to withstand. The old tortoise finally felt the great pressure from the heavenly tribulation. Chapter 3042. In the primordial star region, the clouds of catastrophe were rolling. Dazzling bolts of lightning shot down from the clouds towards the figure below. A terrifying aura of destruction spread out, causing everyone's hearts to palpitate. However, at this moment, an incomparably huge figure appeared in the distant sky. A powerful and terrifying aura spread out from the figure, causing the entire starry sky to shake. What? The great ancestors of the monster clan on the Divine Island were dumbfounded when they saw this. Who was so blind as to actually dare to attack the old turtle? A shocking murderous aura emanated from the figure. In just an instant, the figure had approached them. The nearby stars were shaking as if they were about to fall from the sky. The creature that had suddenly appeared was the crocodile that Gu Fei's group had encountered when they were passing through a desolate starry sky. Didn't this guy fail the catastrophe and die? When Gu Fei saw this scene, he could not help but find it hard to believe. A creature that had died under the catastrophe could not possibly come back to life. Moreover, no one knew how long the crocodile had been dead. With Gu Fei's level of cultivation, he could not sense any signs of life from the crocodile at all. Roar! The crocodile roared angrily at the sky. A terrifying sound wave spread out in all directions, causing pitch-black spatial cracks to appear in the void sky. The nearby stars were shaking violently, but there was no sign of them falling. The stars in the primordial star region were not so easily destroyed. If it had been in any other star region, countless stars would have exploded. At this moment, all the great ancestors of the monster clan on the Divine Island were extremely shocked. The sound wave had actually impacted some of the great ancestors, causing blood to seep out of their ears. Rumble, the divine island shook, and a demonic light of the great path emerged, covering the entire divine island. At this moment, the great ancestors of the monster clan on the divine island heaved a sigh of relief. The crocodile, which was countless times larger than a star, directly reached out its huge claw towards the old turtle who was in the midst of the catastrophe. The void that was enveloped by the claw continued to shatter, courting death. Jiu Fei, who was sitting cross-legged on the star, sneered. With a thought, the peerless ominous saber hovering above his head immediately made a buzzing sound. It flew out and turned into an incomparably huge dragon, pouncing towards the Crocadragon. A frighteningly ferocious aura spread out from the dragon, and even the stars in the sky paled in comparison. At this moment, the monster race-old ancestors on the divine island felt their souls tremble despite being enveloped by the demonic light of the great Tao. All the monster race-old ancestors felt a chill run down their spines. In front of this giant dragon, they were as weak as ants. This was the might of an extreme divine weapon. Ordinary holograde beings would find it difficult to even withstand the aura emanating from a divine weapon, let alone contend against an extreme divine weapon. The huge dragon formed by the peerless ominous saber pounced on the Crocadragon. Then, the huge Crocadragon was torn apart by the peerless ominous dragon. A figure rushed out from the Crocadragon and directly broke through the void in an attempt to escape. However, the ferocious dragon formed by the peerless ominous saber stretched out its claws and grabbed the figure that was about to break the void and escape. In the next moment, the figure was crushed into a cloud of blood mist by the dragon's claws. Both his body and soul were destroyed. It turned out that someone was hiding inside the Crocadragon's body and wanted to use the Crocadragon's eternal destructive power to deal with the old turtle who was in the midst of the catastrophe. However, the tragic thing was that the guy was killed by Jiu Fei's peerless ominous saber as soon as he made his move. After the peerless ominous saber killed the powerful creature, the huge dragon disappeared and turned into an inconspicuous black saber that flew back from afar. The peerless ominous saber truly lives up to its name. On the divine island, a monster race old ancestor exclaimed. In actuality, these old ancestors had lived for countless years and naturally knew how terrifying an extreme divine weapon was. Whoever dares to make a move will end up like this. Jiu Fei's divine consciousness spread out in all directions and no one knew how far it had traveled. He was extremely domineering. He did not care who the guy who made a move was and directly killed him. How domineering. The monster race old ancestors on the divine island were extremely shocked, but they knew that Jiu Fei definitely had the strength to say such words. There were two supreme Tao weapons hovering above Jiu Fei's head. He had made his stance clear to intimidate all the living beings who were secretly plotting against the old tortoise. Rumble, at this time, the old turtle was still using the heaven-smiting art, desperately refining the power of the heavenly tribulation for his own use. He wanted to accumulate as much power as possible to deal with the next heavenly tribulation. However, what the old turtle did not expect was that the figures of creatures quickly appeared in the clouds. They were creatures formed by the power of the heavenly tribulation and were extremely powerful. Although the creatures in the deserted world could not take that final step and achieve the ultimate leap to become the most powerful existence in the world, many of them had survived the heavenly tribulation and became quasi-supreme beings. When these creatures went through the heavenly tribulation, they would naturally leave a mark on the heavenly path. Roar. Within the tribulation clouds, a lightning beast was roaring. This was a creature born from lightning, and it was exceptionally powerful. A terrifying aura of destruction spread out from the tribulation clouds. Come on. The old turtle stood up from the void. He knew that he had to fight. Only by defeating these guys could he pass the heavenly tribulation of a quasi-supreme being. This was the most powerful test given to him by the world. The terrifying thunder beast swooped down from the tribulation cloud and threw a punch at old tortoise. Endless purple lightning immediately rushed out of the thunder beast's fist and bombarded old tortoise. Every bolt of lightning tore the void and the aura of destruction filled every inch of the void. Die. Old tortoise also blasted out a punch. The countless lightning bolts that bombarded him were instantly dispersed by his fist, and the two fists collided. Bolts of purple lightning instantly wrapped around the old turtle's arm. The two figures quickly flew backward. The old turtle used the heaven transformation skill to instantly refine the purple lightning wrapped around his arm. Although the thunder beast was knocked back, it immediately rushed towards the old tortoise again. Its battle intent was extremely strong and terrifying. This was the thunder beast of the ninth heaven. It was extremely powerful and had already taken the step of a quasi-supreme being. The thunder beast of chaos that Ji Yufei's clone killed in the chaotic void could not be compared to it. The old turtle displayed his invincible might and fought with the thunder beast. The two figures moved quickly under the clouds. The heaven transformation skill created by the Tai Huang was constantly circulating. The old turtle was devouring the thunder beast's power. The more he fought, the stronger he became while the thunder beast grew weaker. This was the safest way. The old turtle was actually in an invincible position. There was no suspense. An hour later, the old turtle beat the thunder beast back into the heavenly path. However, after the thunder beast was beaten back into the heavenly path, an even more powerful figure emerged from the clouds. Lightning-shaped lotuses fell from the sky and floated toward the old turtle. What kind of creature is this? Ji Yufei was shocked to see this scene from afar. Could the desolate world also have the inheritance of the Millennium Buddha? This seemed impossible. After all, the ancient heavenly courts had existed for too long. The era where the Millennium Buddha lived was after the ancient heavenly courts. Since the Millennium Buddha achieved enlightenment after the ancient heavenly courts, he should not have discovered the desolate world. At this time, a peerless figure emerged from the clouds. Although the figure was blurry and no one could tell what it looked like, everyone who saw the figure had the feeling that it was a woman. Ji Yufei was not born and raised in the desolate world, so he naturally did not know where this woman came from. However, the dragon horn Cheline was a native creature of the desolate world. The legendary Blue Lotus Dominator. On the Divine Island, the white-robed young man in the form of the dragon horn Cheline saw the figure walking out of the clouds and could not help but be shocked. The Blue Lotus Dominator was an extremely powerful dominator of the desolate world. She was a blue lotus that was born from the primordial chaos. Such a creature's origin alone was enough to shock the world. Furthermore, this blue lotus had cultivated to become a quasi-supreme being. It was absolutely stunning. The old tortoise had already suffered a small loss when it fought against the peerless figure. The stone armor on its body was cracked by the green lotuses. The heavenly tribulation of a quasi-supreme being had reached this point and the old turtle was finally injured. He was sent flying by the peerless figure and was coughing up blood. The stone armor on his body was cracked as if it would shatter at any moment. The old turtle was indescribably shocked. One should know that the black tortoise armor was cracked by the peerless figure. This was something that had never happened before. However, the old tortoise's stone armor emitted strands of divine light, which nullified most of the peerless figure's attack. Otherwise, the old tortoise would not have simply vomited blood. Master lent him the sky blue immortal gold armor. On the Divine Island, above the number 1 pavilion, the three spirits of the immortal path seemed to have noticed something. Under the old turtle's stone armor was the sky blue immortal gold armor. It was an armor that was infinitely close to an extreme saint treasure. Moreover, the sky blue immortal gold was immortal gold. Even the strongest heavenly tribulation would not be able to damage the sky blue immortal gold armor. The old turtle had definitely prepared for the heavenly tribulation. He had thought of every method he could think of. He even borrowed the sky blue immortal gold armor from Ji Yufei and wore it. Die. Chapter 3043. The old tortoise's test came a little too soon. A peerless figure emerged from the clouds of catastrophe and displayed an unparalleled combat ability, sending the old tortoise flying continuously. Everyone knew very well that the peerless figure was merely a mark of the great path left on the heavenly path by an expert of the past. However, it was precisely this figure formed by the mark of the great path that caused the old tortoise to suffer. The pitilessly powerful figure's combat power was so strong that even the stone armor on the old tortoise's body began to crack. This was absolutely unimaginable. After all, the stone armor on the old tortoise was no ordinary armor. It was transformed from the Black Tortoise armor. The Black Tortoise armor was definitely a weapon with the strongest defense below the Supreme Path weapon. Although this treasure armor was not a Supreme Path weapon, it was not far from it. Its defensive ability was comparable to that of a Supreme Path weapon. However, a Dao weapon with such a powerful defense had actually cracked under the attack of that peerless figure. This was a testament to the power of the figure. Such a stunning figure did not become a supreme. Tens of thousands of miles away in the starry sky, Jiyu Fei sat cross-legged on a star. It was impossible for him not to be shocked when he saw this scene. The peerless figure was really too strong, ridiculously strong. Even those supreme beings before they attained the heavenly path would not have been so powerful. The power of the heavenly test was filled with a destructive aura, but the destructive aura on the figure was not that strong. Endless lightning emerged and intertwined on her body, condensing into green lotuses. Those green lotuses directly floated up and drifted towards the old tortoise. Although the figure was formed by the power of the heavenly test, it still gave off an otherworldly feeling. As her hands danced, it was as if she was a dancing fairy from the 9 heavens. The Green Lotus Dominator was definitely one of the most powerful dominators in the history of the desolate world. The green lotus that floated out from the peerless figure possessed unimaginable power. Even when the old tortoise used the Calamity Heaven skill, it was difficult for him to completely quantify the destructive power that erupted from the Green Lotus Dominator. Yes, old tortoise has been beaten up badly. It's about to show its might. On a star tens of thousands of miles away, Jiyu Fei, who was closely watching the old turtle's tribulation, saw that the old turtle was about to go crazy. After all, he was the son of the Grand Emperor and was extremely arrogant. The turtle flew into a rage out of humiliation after being beaten black and blue under the watchful eyes of the demon race's ancestors. A huge dragon emerged from its body and pounced at the peerless figure with bared fangs and brandished claws. It was as if a real ancestral dragon had appeared in the world. An extremely powerful quasi-supreme level draconic might spread out from the dragon's shadow. Rumble. Countless green lotuses landed on the ancestral dragon's body and exploded in an instant. The ancestral dragon's shadow became faint from the explosion, as if it would dissipate into the void at any time. Dragon Claw. Old Tortoise roared and raised his right hand. He directly grabbed at the peerless figure with green lotuses blooming all over his body. The void between heaven and earth was as fragile as a thin piece of paper under the dragon's claw and was torn apart. The figure reached out his right hand and slapped the dragon claw of Old Tortoise. Old Tortoise immediately suffered a great impact. His body trembled and he was directly sent flying thousands of meters away. How is this possible? Old Tortoise was inexplicably shocked. This opponent was really too powerful. It didn't make sense. Didn't the deserted world not have a supreme yet? How could such a figure exist? This was not without reason. The combat power displayed by this mark of the Great Path was too strong. Such a figure had a high chance of successfully taking that step and achieving the ultimate leap to become an invincible supreme. Old Tortoise was not the only one who was shocked. All the demon race's ancestors who were watching the battle from afar were inexplicably shocked. Even the demon race's ancestors who were hiding in the void could not help but be moved. However, being shocked was just being shocked. Old Tortoise still had to face this peerless figure. He once again attacked with all his strength, and the terrifying power of the ancestral dragon erupted from his body. Sounds of wind and thunder came from his body. The power of his bloodline began to awaken. For Old Tortoise, the power of his bloodline was his trump card. He was the son of the Taihuang Emperor, and the bloodline of the Taihuang Emperor possessed unimaginable power. Boom! Immediately, a ball of dazzling demonic light erupted from Old Tortoise's body. It was as if a divine sun had appeared between heaven and earth, illuminating the entire dim primordial starry sky. Old Tortoise's figure disappeared. Within that ball of demonic light, there seemed to be a powerful creature that was about to transform. A trace of the extreme path actually seeped out. The Taihuang Emperor's bloodline is indeed powerful. On a star tens of thousands of miles away, Jiyu Fei could not help but be moved when he saw this scene. Old Tortoise's innate advantage was too strong. The Tai Huang Emperor's bloodline was almost immortal, which greatly benefited Old Tortoise. Most importantly, the Tai Huang Emperor's inheritance was hidden in the bloodline and passed down to Old Tortoise. The Tai Huang Emperor's bloodline in Old Tortoise's body was like a supreme treasure. Hegemon Green Lotus's incarnation of the Great Path seemed to be very afraid of the ball of demonic light that Old Tortoise had transformed into, and it actually retreated. At the same time, an even more powerful power of heavenly tribulation descended from the tribulation clouds in the sky. Hegemon Green Lotus's incarnation of the Great Path was attracting the power of heavenly tribulation to itself. Rumble, earth-shattering thunderclaps kept coming from the tribulation clouds, and the entire void was filled with an aura of destruction. Bolts of lightning landed on Hegemon Green Lotus's incarnation of the Great Path. Her incarnation of the Great Path actually became clearer, as if it was really going to walk out of the void. Such a method was too shocking. It should be noted that Hegemon Green Lotus's incarnation of the Great Path was merely an evolution of a Great Pathmark that she had branded on the heavenly path. However, at this moment, all living beings who saw this scene had an illusion. That was, this incarnation of the Great Path seemed to still retain the consciousness of the young ruler, and it was actually using Hegemon Green Lotus's great technique. Tread the 9 heavens, I am supreme. At this moment, a loud voice came from the ball of demonic light that resembled a divine sun under the tribulation clouds. A figure that was powerful beyond the 9 heavens could be vaguely seen in that ball of demonic light. Tai Huang. When the old ancestor of the demon clan, who was hidden in the void, saw this scene, he was truly shocked. At this moment, the Tai Huang seal in the old ancestor's hand kept vibrating, as if it was going to break free from his grasp and fly out. At this moment, a cold snort came from afar. In the endless starry sky, an incomparably huge figure appeared in the primordial star sector.